Chapter 1379. Jiang Chen's words were quite intimidating, and what he said was quite reasonable. The 9 ancient spirits all fell silent for a moment. They knew how powerful people with providence were. If they really wanted to go all out, they could definitely kill 1 or 2 of them, and they didn't want to be one of them. As you can see, a few of us have already ascended to the extreme. If we don't devour the essence chi, I'm afraid we won't be able to reach the border. Someone said. At this moment, they were in a dilemma. We'll send you over. As long as you get there, you can devour as much as you want. Jiang Chen said. Hearing this, the 9 ancient spirits began to secretly discuss. After half an incense stick's worth of time, they nodded in agreement. They really didn't want to continue fighting with Jiang Chen. They could see that Jiang Chen was absolutely daring to go all out. It was not worth it for them. Then I'll have to trouble you two to send them over. Jiang Chen looked at Ji Runmeng and Qian Dao. The providence of heaven and earth had a time limit. Jiang Chen could feel that the providence in his body was about to disappear. If he sent the 9 ancient spirits over now, they probably wouldn't have the strength to come back. Ji Runmeng and Qian Dao also knew this situation, so they didn't refuse. They directly used their mighty force to open a space-time passage and sent the 9 ancient spirits away. Seeing the 9 ancient spirits leave, Jiang Chen finally breathed a sigh of relief. Wakako on the side was covered in cold sweat because his providence had already disappeared. Just now he had been forcefully holding on. Now that his providence had disappeared, Wakako was very weak. His eyes turned black, and he fainted on the spot. Jiang Chen wasn't much better. His body was weak, and his footsteps were light. After struggling to bring everyone back to the ancestral court, he also fainted. This time he was unconscious for a full 10 days. During these 10 days, Jiang Chen was muddle-headed and his consciousness was blurry. He woke up a few times, but quickly fainted again. The providence of heaven and earth is so strong that ordinary people can't withstand it. It's already not bad that the 2 of them can survive. Rotten said, as long as they wake up, they'll be fine. Then, is the dark blood era gonna end like this? Jiang Lu asked. As soon as these words came out, everyone looked at Jiang Lu as if they were looking at an idiot. Rotten smiled bitterly and said, calling you silly isn't wrong at all. If the dark blood era could end so easily, it wouldn't be called the dark blood era. What kind of people are those 9 ancient spirits? That was an existence that dominated a region in prehistory and dared to challenge the invincible. Do you think they'll let you go after they've devoured enough essence? The Rotten One asked. If you guys don't die, the 9 great ancient spirits will definitely be wary. If they wake up in the next era and meet you guys again, it will be a huge headache for them. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of Jiang Lu and the others greatly changed. They looked at Jiang Chen and Wakako worriedly. If the ancient spirits really came back, would Jiang Chen and Wakako still be able to use the providence of heaven and earth? Even if they could use it again, the combat power of the 9 great ancient spirits would definitely skyrocket after devouring their essence. At that time, Jiang Chen and Wakako, even if Qian Dao and Ji Runmeng came together, it would probably be difficult for them to contend against the 9 great ancient spirits. This is like an endless cycle. If the great wide world doesn't produce an invincible being, this world will still be the world of the 9 great ancient spirits. Since prehistory, they've actually occupied this great wide world. We're all livestock that they raise, just like nourishment. In this era, if you guys hadn't established the ancestral court and obtained the providence of heaven and earth, the great wide world would have been plunged into misery and suffering. At this point, the Rotten One also let out a long sigh. He touched his head, feeling that something big was going to happen recently. Protect me. I want to summon the true spirit back. After a few breaths, the Rotten One's expression was very serious. He was going to do something big. However, when everyone heard this, they were dumbfounded. Summon the true spirit back? What did that mean? One had to know that the true spirit was equivalent to one's soul, equivalent to one's true Tao fruit. This kind of thing could not be separated. I've lived for too long. So I was bored and separated a part of my true spirit to let it train outside, the Rotten One explained. Now, it seems that the 9 great ancient spirits will definitely come again. I should also summon my true spirit back and achieve my strongest state. What? Senior Rotten One, you only have a part of your true spirit in your body? Everyone exclaimed. The Rotten One, who had separated a part of his true spirit, actually still had such strength. If his true spirit returned, the Rotten One could at least step into the broken path level, or even reach the end of it. Senior, if your true spirit returns, what level will your cultivation reach? Bai Fengyu asked curiously. I'm really not sure about that. The Rotten One shook his head. I've lived for too long and have forgotten many things. I only remember that when I was at my peak state in prehistory, I was infinitely close to a true immortal. With that, the Rotten One laughed and said, I'm also someone who has passed the immortal ascension tribulation. What? You also passed the immortal ascension tribulation in prehistory? At this moment, everyone was shocked again. Passing the immortal ascension tribulation, but not ascending, wasn't that the same as the ancient spirits? However, the Rotten One had lived until now and didn't need to devour essence to survive like the ancient spirits. What was going on? I passed the immortal ascension tribulation at that time and could have ascended, unlike the 9 great ancient spirits who couldn't, the Rotten One explained. Because of that, my soul has an immortal seal, so I don't need to devour essence and can live forever. It's just a pity I was caught up in the degenerate age. At that time, the immortal path just happened to be broken, so I was left in this world. At this point, the Rotten One was melancholy. Back then, if he had broken through earlier and passed the immortal ascension tribulation, he would have been in the immortal world by now. All of this might have been fate for the Rotten One. You can put it this way. In today's world, I'm the only true immortal. It's just that I didn't make it in time and coincidentally encountered the immortal path that was broken. The Rotten One said with a hint of arrogance in his turbid eyes. Damn, so you're really an immortal. TSK, TSK, TSK. I didn't expect there to be a Lu Di immortal by our side. At the same time, they also understood why those people were afraid of the Rotten One when the red spider lilies attacked the ancestral court. It was because the Rotten One was the only Earth immortal left in this world. Guard me. When I summon the true spirit back, my body will become very weak. There can't be any mistakes, the Rotten One said seriously. Chapter 1380. Unlike those ancient spirits, the Rotten One had passed the immortal ascension tribulation and was able to enter the immortal world. If not for the good era, he would have been living a carefree life in the immortal world. At this moment, in order to deal with the 9 ancient spirits, the Rotten One had no choice but to summon his true spirit. However, this process was very dangerous. If he was careless, his true spirit would collide with the summoned true spirit, and his Tao fruit would most likely shatter. Let's begin. Half a day later, formations rose from the mountain behind the ancestral court. Barriers and restrictions covered the place, and everyone in the ancestral court surrounded the Rotten One. The Rotten One sat cross-legged in the formation. In front of him was an altar that he had built himself. His remaining true spirit was placed on the altar. He formed a hand seal and chanted an ancient and obscure scripture. Strong winds howled around him as the power of laws manifested. The power of order burst forth like chains. Auspiciousness rose into the sky, and golden lotuses covered the ground. His body seemed to have turned into chaos, and no one could see his appearance clearly. A broken path appeared under his feet. At first, it was very blurry, but as time passed, the broken path became much more solid, and the footprints on the broken path went deeper. The Rotten One's aura was slowly rising, and a day later, he had reached the middle of the broken path. However, there was still a long way to go before he could summon his true spirit. Senior Rotten is so powerful. If he really summons his true spirit back and becomes the only true immortal in this world, wouldn't our ancestral court be invincible? Zhang Lu said naively. You're thinking too much. What a fool. Nayland Mayer rolled her eyes. After all, He hasn't entered the immortal world and hasn't been baptized by the laws of the immortal Tao. His strength should be above the cultivators at the end of the broken path, but not by much. Even if he calls back his true spirit, I'm afraid that Senior Rotten Man won't be able to fight against the 9 great ancient spirits by himself. After all, the 9 great ancient spirits were supreme experts in prehistory. Their trump cards and methods are far from what we can imagine, said Bai Fengyu. Jianglu smiled awkwardly. His thoughts were very simple, so he naturally didn't think so much. However, once the Rotten One's true spirit returned, the ancestral court would at least have a certain level of protection. That old guy is coming back. At this moment, in the Great Thousand Graveyard, a woman looked up at the sky with a charming smile. Beside her, Qin Dao was holding his head. There was a big bump on his head. Wife, can Rotten really return? Who knows where the part of his true spirit that he sent out went? What if he has already fallen? Qin Dao muttered, also, I just went out for a while. I really didn't go around flirting with women. You don't have to do anything to me, do you? When the woman heard this, she glared at Qin Dao with her beautiful eyes and said with a faint smile, You teased Ji rumming the moment you met her. Do you think I don't know? Kneel properly. Kneel. Qin Dao laughed bitterly, but he didn't care at all. After all, there was no one else in the Great Thousand Graveyard. He could kneel however he wanted. At the same time, on the other side of the world, in the mountain gate of the Red Spider Lily, the 3 patriarchs had been revived, but they were still extremely weak. They were currently sitting cross-legged within the main body of the Permitha flower, quietly recuperating. They were also looking in the direction of the ancestral court. They also knew the identity and origins of the Rotten One. At this moment, the 3 of them looked very solemn. After looking at each other a few times, they seemed to be hesitating about something. In front of them, there was a man shrouded in fog. He was also looking in the direction of the ancestral court. If he returns, he might stop the progress of the Yang 3 realms, the man said in a deep voice. At this moment, if Yu Yi was here, she would definitely recognize this person. It was him who had fought with Yu Yi and injured her. And this person, just as Yu Yi had guessed, was indeed from the Yang 3 realms. Yang Zun, are you going to make a move? Someone asked in a rather low voice. I'm afraid that's not appropriate, right? If you make a move, your identity will definitely be exposed. At that time, my Permitha flower clan, why should I make a move? The man said softly. Whether or not he can return is his fortune. I'm just curious. Is the Great Thousand World so weak in this generation? Is there only one Earth, immortal Lu Di Xian? The man was puzzled. As soon as this was said, the expressions of the 3 patriarchs of the Permitha flower clan changed slightly. They quickly understood that there was probably more than one Earth immortal in the Yang 3 realms, especially the man in front of them. Back then, he could injure Yu Yi, so his cultivation was very likely to be an Earth immortal. Actually, the Yang 3 realms only came to the Great Thousand World for one thing, and that is to find the stone tablet that suppresses the path to immortality of the Yang 3 realms. As long as we find it, we won't stay in the Great Thousand World any longer, the man said. However, ever since the prehistoric era, the Yang 3 realms had come to the Great Thousand World many times and fought many battles, but they had never found the stone tablet. This made the people of the Yang 3 realms very angry and unhappy. The Yang 3 realms are sworn enemies. The Great Thousand World is very deep. It suppresses the path to immortality of the Yang 3 realms and the Yin 3 realms. The man explained, if the Yin 3 realms' path to immortality is opened first, then the Yang 3 realms will definitely be destroyed. In the end, we don't want to fight in the Great Thousand World. We have to do this for our own world. The 3 patriarchs of the Permitha flower clan didn't say anything. They were very clear in their hearts. Just say it, and we'll just listen. Even if you're exaggerating, what does it have to do with us? No matter how nice it sounds, it's as if you're going to change the battlefield to another place. This is the ancient underworld. Suddenly, the Permitha flower clan's patriarchs were shocked. Even Yang Zun from the Yang 3 realms cried out in surprise. Similarly, in the Great Thousand Graveyard, Qian Dao and his wife also widened their eyes and locked their gazes in the direction of the ancestral court. On the other side, Ji Rumeng was also paying attention. At this moment, her heart was palpitating. This was because just now, the void above the ancestral court collapsed, and a dark and ancient door suddenly appeared. The door was made of bronze, and it was covered with mottled bloodstains. Right above the door, the word underworld was written in large letters. Those who had survived from prehistoric times were very familiar with this door. Wasn't this the door of the ancient underworld? However, what was difficult to understand was why the door of the ancient underworld would open at this moment, and why it would open above the ancestral court. Could it be related to the matter of the rotten man summoning his true spirit? I was wondering why I didn't sense the aura of my true spirit all these years. It turns out that I entered the ancient underworld. The rotten man's expression was rather ugly. He was somewhat afraid of the ancient underworld. At this moment, he stood up and looked at the door of the ancient underworld. He cupped his hands and bowed, saying, "Is there anyone?" Chapter 1381. The appearance of the ancient underworld's gate was something that had never happened since the prehistoric times. There were many rumors about the ancient underworld, and some people even claimed that they had seen the gate before. However, these were all rumors, and no one could really say for sure what was inside the ancient underworld. Today, the gate of the ancient underworld had appeared, and from the looks of it, it seemed to have appeared because the rotten man had summoned his spirit. Is there anyone left in the ancient underworld? At this moment, the rotten man spoke again, and he was very respectful. After all, the ancient underworld's reputation was not just for show. In the prehistoric times, this power could be said to be connected to heaven and earth. Even though time had passed, and it was no longer the prehistoric times, no one in the current world dared to underestimate the ancient underworld. I'll return you half of my true spirit. At this moment, an ancient voice sounded from the gate of the ancient underworld. Then, a ball of light came out from the gate of the ancient underworld and landed in front of the rotten man. The rotten man's face suddenly turned gloomy. Just as he had guessed, the part of his true spirit that he had split off had really entered the ancient underworld. And now, there was obviously someone in the ancient underworld who had very likely detained that part of his true spirit, and now only a part of it was returned. To the rotten man, this was naturally unacceptable. The true spirit was the rotten man's Tao fruit and soul. If even a little of it was lost, it would be a serious loss to him. In fact, if the path to immortality opened again in the future, the rotten man might not even be able to ascend. This is my true spirit. What use does the ancient underworld have for it? The rotten man said in a deep voice. Are they forcefully keeping my true spirit? It's not being kept. It's the part of your true spirit that is now holding an important position in the ancient underworld. The voice sounded again, and there was a trace of a different emotion in it. However, the rotten man did not care about this. That was his true spirit, and how could he let it fall into the hands of others? If that part of his true spirit was destroyed, the rotten man might die because of it. If you insist on not returning it, then today, I'll enter the ancient underworld to take a look, the rotten man said in a deep voice. His aura erupted, and the broken path appeared under his feet. Tens of thousands of laws danced around him. The rotten man was really strong, especially after fusing with part of his true spirit. His strength had become even more terrifying. However, before Rotten could make a move, the gate to the ancient underworld suddenly opened. Then, a person who looked exactly like the rotten man walked out. He looked at the rotten man with a strange expression and said, "Who do you think is talking to you?" Ever since prehistoric times, the ancient hell had never interfered with the affairs of the mortal realm. If I hadn't sensed your call, I wouldn't have bothered to come to this world. At this moment, not to mention Rotten, even the people watching from afar were dumbfounded. You are the part of my true spirit that I split off. The rotten man was stunned. He stared blankly at the other party, 1,000 curses running through his mind. The part of his true spirit that he had split out was doing so well. You've taken on an important position in the ancient hell? However, he was the main body. Now my main body is telling you to come back. How dare you not come back? What the ancient underworld wants to do is far beyond what you can imagine. Even if this world were to be destroyed, no one would be able to stop the ancient underworld. This part of the true spirit said, "Back then, you split me out and I entered the ancient underworld by chance. Perhaps this is fate, an opportunity, an opportunity. You don't have to force it. When the time is right, I will naturally come back and merge with you." After hearing this, the rotten man naturally did not agree. However, at this moment, he was a little afraid because he felt a special aura from that part of the true spirit. That aura seemed to be the opposite of immortal chi. It was very powerful, but also incomparably dark. Moreover, the rotten man was not blind. He could see that the strength of that part of the true spirit was stronger than his. In this way, it was obviously impossible to forcibly take back this part of the true spirit. You can only come back when the time is right. The greater thousand realms are about to be destroyed. When the time is right, won't I be dying? The rotten man said in a low voice. "You're dead, but I'm still alive. As long as I'm alive, you won't die," said the part of the true spirit. As soon as these words came out, the rotten man's chest heaved, and he almost vomited blood. "Good heavens, you're looking forward to my main body dying, aren't you? Hey. The rotten man opened his mouth, but that part of the true spirit did not even look at the rotten man. It turned around and returned to the gate. Then, the gate closed tightly and disappeared into the void. This time, the rotten man was dumbfounded, and so were the others. "It left just like that? Senior, that part of your true spirit doesn't care about you anymore." Many people in the ancestral court had strange expressions. When they looked at the rotten man, they did not know how to comfort him. The rotten man's face darkened as he looked at the place where the gate of the ancient netherworld had disappeared. After a moment of silence, he said in a low voice, "It's just a part of the true spirit. What's the big deal? At most, I'll sever the karma and reconstruct part of my true spirit." However, reconstructing part of the true spirit was easier said than done. Otherwise, the rotten man would not have gone through so much trouble to summon it. Moreover, there was no time for the rotten man to reconstruct his true spirit now. I knew it wouldn't be so easy to summon a true spirit back. Yang Zun stood in the mountain gate of the Red Spider Lily clan and sneered. The true spirit that has been split off has its own thoughts and cultivation. Who would be willing to return to be someone else's shadow? Senior, you come from an ancient force in the three realms of Yang, so you should know a lot. Do you know what the ancient netherworld is doing? The ancient netherworld disappeared during the last period of prehistory. The ancient netherworld is different from the ancient heavenly court. The ancient netherworld has never declined. But what exactly do they want to do? The Red Spider Lily clan's ancestors were puzzled. Even though they were native creatures of the greater thousand realms, they could not figure out what the ancient netherworld was doing. There is the celestial realm in the sky and the mortal world underground. Naturally, there is another world below the mortal world, Yang Zun said. However, there is something wrong with that world. It has never appeared since ancient times. Perhaps the ancient netherworld wants that world to appear. Now that the path to the celestial realm is broken, it is impossible for people to become immortals. Then, perhaps we can go the other way. If we can't go to the sky, we can go to the ground. However, there were too few records about that world. Even in prehistory, no one knew what that world was like. However, one thing was certain. The prosperity and power of that world was not inferior to the celestial realm. People from the three realms of Een have also entered. Yang Zun's expression suddenly froze. He sensed an aura that opposed the Yang realm somewhere in this greater thousand realms. This aura could only belong to the three realms of Een. Is the three realms of Een and Yang about to go to war? One of the Red Spider Lily clan's ancestors asked. Not so soon. They are all vanguards. But perhaps the great war of this generation will start early. Yang Zun said solemnly. There was a hidden meaning in his words. Chapter 1382. As time passed, the three realms of Een and Yang invaded the great thousand world faster and faster. Although the vanguard of the three realms of Yang had not been able to attack the Great Thousand World, that was because the main force of the three realms of Yang had not arrived yet. When the main force arrived, it would be easy to break through the defense line. Of course, the three realms of Yang did not dare to send out their main force because the Great Thousand World was deep. Who knew what terrifying characters were hidden in this world? The vanguard of the three realms of Yang had been attacking the border. In fact, it was to test how deep the waters of the Great Thousand World were. When the time came, if the Great Thousand World was still like this, the main force of the three realms of Yang would definitely attack. On the contrary, the three realms of Yin would not attack the border. Instead, they would use the power of the Evil Spirit King Bell to sneak in. However, the Evil Spirit King Bell did not have any reaction now. It was probably because its strength had been damaged and was still recovering. The Great Thousand World is deep, but this muddy water will be filled sooner or later, Yang Zun said. At this moment, in the ancestral court, a group of people looked at the Rotten One with strange expressions and did not dare to say anything. The Rotten One's face was dark as he clenched his fists. The anger in his heart turned into a solid sword that floated around him. Fortunately, he suppressed it and his face returned to normal. He waved his hand and sighed. Forget it. That's it. Senior, with your current strength, can you block the 9 ancient spirits? Zhang Lu asked. Blocking 1 or 2 is not a problem. The Rotten One was quite confident, but it was completely not enough for him. If that part of his true spirit could return, he could block the 9 ancient spirits alone, but now he could not. Aren't there a few powerhouses in the Great Thousand World who are at the end of the road? When the time comes, we don't have to be too afraid of the 9 ancient spirits. The Rotten One comforted him. With that, he turned around, and his face darkened again. He silently left the place. Senior is in a bad mood, Jiang Lu muttered. We are not blind. After a few more days, Jiang Chun and Wakako woke up. The two of them were in a daze and did not completely wake up until half a day later. The fate of heaven and earth. It's too uncomfortable. Wakako shook his head. His body was still a little weak. If it wasn't for the fact that his body was strong enough, he would probably still be unconscious. It feels good to act tough for a while, but after acting tough, Jiang Chun was also dizzy. After gathering everyone, he asked about the recent events. Jiang Chen's heart sank when he heard that the Rotten Man had failed to summon his spirit. What about the 9 great ancient spirits? Why is there no reaction at all after going to the border? Jiang Chen asked. The border is too far from here. Even if the sky and earth were to be turned upside down over there, we wouldn't be able to sense anything from here. The Rotten walked in with a frown, but according to the strength of the 9 ancient spirits, they should have finished devouring a few days ago. They're most likely resting now. As for going into hibernation again, that's impossible. They won't let you go. Jiang Chen nodded involuntarily. He knew what the Rotten Man meant. The reason why the 9 great ancient spirits went to the border was because they were forced by Jiang Chun and the rest. With their status and strength in prehistoric times, they had never been forced like this. Now, even if he used his but to think, he could imagine that the 9 great ancient spirits would not let this matter rest. Moreover, the main force of the yin-yang realm was about to enter the great wide world. Given the personalities of the 9 great ancient spirits, they would most likely want a share of the pie. Let's integrate. At this moment, Jiang Chen's expression froze. He felt that it was necessary to integrate the great wide world again. Previously, although Wakako had led the people of the ancestral court to fight everywhere and subdued various top sects, there were still many forces who were not convinced. For example, when facing the 9 great ancient spirits, were there no breaking-level powerhouses among those top forces? But why didn't any of them come? It was because they were not convinced of the ancestral court. This time, Jiang Chen made up his mind. It was time to truly unify the great wide world. This time, we have to show the true combat strength of the ancestral court, Jiang Chen said. It's useless to have more people. What we need is strong enough combat strength. After saying that, Jiang Chen looked at Rotten and cupped his hands. This time, we will send 4 people. If the 4 of us can sweep through the 4 directions, it will definitely form a deterrent force. At that time, we won't be far from true unification. Senior Rotten, I'll have to trouble you to make a trip to the west. Along the way, submit to us, Jiangchen said seriously. When Rotten heard this, he did not refuse and immediately nodded in agreement. Then, he looked at Wakako and patted him on the shoulder. Go to the north. You have the luck of heaven and earth on your body. Sweep through them for me. Remember, pick the strongest people in those sects to fight. Beat them until they submit. Wakako's eyes flickered with a cold light. However, Jiangchen frowned and hesitated for a moment. This was because there were only 3 top combat strength in the ancestral court, including him. In terms of east, west, north, and south, there was still 1 less. Then, what should he do about the last one? All right, where are those great virtues? Suddenly, Jiangchen's eyes lit up as he thought of those bastards. Thinking about it carefully, those bastards seemed to have not appeared for a long time. He did not know what they were doing. Those fellows just lie there all day long, just like salted fish. Nayland May smiled bitterly. No one is able to move them. Is that so? Jiangchen raised his eyebrows and shouted outside the hall, Bastards, come here! Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, a few great virtues walked in with shifty expressions. When they saw Jiangchen, Long Dade coughed a few times and said, Boss, we have recently made a breakthrough in our cultivation and are planning to go into seclusion. You, go to the south and sweep all the way there. Is there a problem? Jiangchen waved his hand. He did not want to listen to these great virtues nonsense. Are you serious? What kind of cultivation do we have? What can we sweep? Huang Dade muttered. When the time comes, we won't be able to sweep the others, but we will lose ourselves. That's right. We are not powerful. Huang Dade nodded. Even Jin Dade and Yao Dade had a sullen expression. It was obvious that they were unwilling to make a move. Jiangchen naturally knew that these great virtues were not strong enough. However, the key was that the forces behind these great virtues were powerful. The 3 great demon races were not powerful? Jiangchen did not believe that the 3 great demon races did not have a few road breaker level experts. As for Jin Dade and Yao Dade, these 2 were raised by Qian Dao. After raising them for a few generations, how could Qian Dao watch them die? All right, it's decided. Jiangchen said, I will go to the east. Boss, aren't you making things difficult for us? Furthermore, we don't have a leader now, Long Dade said. Long Dade grumbled. If the worst the strongest Mu Yud was here, we could have swept through the south. Chapter 1383. Jiangchen was speechless at the mention of Mu Yuda. Who knew where that guy had run off to now? Was he trying to figure out whose tomb he was robbing? Although I'm not here, my ears are very sharp. You damn dragon. How dare you speak ill of me behind my back? Suddenly, a gust of cold wind appeared, accompanied by the aura of death. Then, a person covered in yellow sand and holding a rotten thigh bone walked in. He had barged into the ancestral court, and even the protective array formation could not stop him. You are this beggar? Everyone was stunned for a moment before they saw the person's appearance. Wasn't it Mu Yuda who had disappeared? I say, did you rob a tomb just now? Jiangchen pinched his nose. He had to admit that the smell on Mu Yuda's body was terrible. People who did not know him would think that he had crawled out from a pile of corpses, especially the rotten thigh bone he was holding in his hand, which was still dripping with water. Was it really suitable to hold this thing in his hand? I just went to the ancient netherworld. It wasn't easy for me to bring it out of the ancient underworld. Mu Yuda said seriously. Perhaps you people will never be able to enter the ancient netherworld in your lifetime, but not only did I go in, I even came out alive. As he spoke, Mu Yuda shook the thigh bone in his hand as if he was showing off his spoils of war. This made everyone shudder. Damn Taoist. Not long ago, the gate of the ancient netherworld appeared in the ancestral court, Jiang Lu said. Part of Senior Rotten's true spirit is now holding an important position in the ancient netherworld. What? Muyuda's expression froze when he heard this. He looked at the rotten man in shock. After sizing him up, he threw away the thigh bone in his hand and walked over with a smile on his face. He held the rotten man's hand and said kindly, "Sir, you scram." The rotten rolled his eyes and shook off Muyuda's hand. He felt a chill in his heart. However, Muyuda had always been shameless to the extreme, especially when it came to matters related to the ancient underworld. Whenever he encountered Muyuda, he would be synonymous with shamelessness. "Sir, is a part of your true soul holding an important position in the ancient underworld? Then, can you introduce me to you?" Muyuda smiled and said, "I can promise you anything." "All right, help me find that part of the true spirit," the rotten man said, annoyed. Muyuda's face darkened when he heard this. He snorted a few times and picked up the thigh bone. He looked at Jiang Chun with a rare, serious expression and said, "I knew you were in trouble. I sensed it, so I came. I wouldn't have dared to say that I would be able to sweep through anyone before, but now that I have this thigh bone, even if the person at the end of the path were to come, this old man would be able to compete with him." "Oh, this thigh bone has a great background?" Jiang Chun asked curiously. However, even after everyone observed it carefully, they still couldn't find anything special about the thigh bone. But right at this moment, the rotten man had a strange expression on his face. He stared at the thigh bone and said in a low voice, "Let me have a look." "No." Muyuda's reaction was very intense. He put the thigh bone into his spiritual world, guarding against the rotten man as if he was guarding against a thief. At this moment, the rotten man was certain. His face was red as he stared at Muyuda and said in a low voice, "Did you bring this out of the ancient underworld?" "Nonsense," Muyuda said, but then he shook his head again and said, "No, I picked it up on the side of the road." "Bullshit. This thigh bone is clearly mine." The rotten man was furious. His eyes were burning with anger. He hadn't sensed it before, but after Muyuda repeatedly emphasized that it was the thigh bone, the rotten man couldn't help but sense it. After sensing it, the rotten man immediately realized that the thigh bone's aura was exactly the same as his. They came from the same source. However, the rotten man had never been to the ancient underworld, so the origin of this thigh bone was very likely to be the part of his true soul. "What did you do to that part of my true soul?" the rotten man said in a low voice. "Part of your true soul? Don't tell me you're talking about the one in the ancient underworld?" Muyuda was stunned. Thinking back to what the rotten man had said before, he thought to himself that it was indeed the case. Then Muyuda told him about his experience. It turned out that after he and Jiang Chun parted ways, he went back to his old profession. He kept robbing tombs in order to enter the ancient underworld. In the end, he succeeded. He dug a special passage and entered the ancient underworld. However, after entering the ancient underworld, he was quickly discovered. Then, he engaged in a battle with a decaying but ridiculously powerful creature. At the end of the battle, Muyuda was defeated, but he also tore off one of his opponent's legs. Then, he ran out of the ancient underworld. "How dare you hurt my true soul?" After hearing this, the rotten man was furious. His eyes were spitting fire. Muyuda was immediately unhappy. He said angrily, "That part of your true soul refused to come back and was so disobedient. Isn't it good that I helped you teach it a lesson? Besides, with this thigh bone, that part of your true soul can't cultivate a complete body. When the time comes, it will never be able to defeat you. When the time comes, it will be easy for you to subdue it. To be honest, I did help you unintentionally," Muyuda said with a straight face. After hearing this, the rotten man was silent for a long time. He thought of many things. In the end, the rotten man's face was sullen. He said in a muffled voice, "Thank you." This time, everyone was dumbfounded. They didn't expect Muyuda to be able to trick the rotten man. However, when they thought about it carefully, although Muyuda's words were not completely correct, they were not very wrong either. "I'll keep this thigh bone for you first," Muyuda said. "You and he are originally one. If this thigh bone is with you, he will most likely find you by following your aura. But if it's with me, I'll make sure he can't find it for 8 lifetimes. Then I'll have to trouble you." The rotten man became much more polite. All right. Take a few Vedanta to the south. Set off today. You must complete the unification before the 9 ancient spirits come back. Jiang Chen said, Time waits for no one. I'll go first. The rotten man knew the severity of the situation. He immediately got up and turned into a stream of light, leaving the ancestral court. Then, Wakako left with Xiao Qingyi. The two of them could take care of each other. Next, Muyuta set off with a few Vedanta. The Vedanta seemed to be very timid. They anxiously brought a large group of experts from the 3 demon races. On this expedition, their group was the largest. Chapter 1384. The ancestral court set off for war, and smoke rose from all directions. On this day, the rotten man embarked on a journey alone. A portion of his true spirit had returned. Although his strength wasn't as powerful as before, it was enough to sweep through all directions, especially the broken path that was reflected under his feet. He had almost reached the end of the road. This was the embodiment of strength. The first to receive news of victory was from the rotten man. He traveled all the way to the west and visited all the top sections. He didn't even miss out on those first-rate and second-rate sections. Everywhere he went, there was only one battle, and he won all of them. Moreover, this time, he was going to carry out a true unification. Jiang Chun had also instructed that those forces had to completely submit. Therefore, wherever the rotten ones went, wherever they won, they would make contracts with the sects and forces. I have reached the extreme west and subdued 1,363 sects and 12 top forces. I have made a contract with all of them. 3 days later, the rotten man sent another report of victory. Of course, the report also told him that the reason he could unify the West so quickly was because of the Buddhist sect's help. Jiang Chun and the others didn't expect this. After all, in the eyes of many people, the Buddhist sect wouldn't care about the secular world in chaotic times. But this time, even the Buddhist sect had made a move, which meant that even the Buddhist sect had realized the seriousness of the situation. We're also going very smoothly here. Boss, you don't have to worry. 6 days later, under the leadership of Mu Yuda, the Great Virtue Army had successfully subdued all the sects in the south. Especially in the end, even the ancestors of the evil races had made a move. It could be said that they had swept all the way. The southwest and the south have been subdued. Now, all that's left is the north where Wakako and Xiao Qingyi went. Jiang Chun stayed in the ancestral court and didn't go to the east to fight. It was because all the powerhouses in the ancestral court had attacked, and someone had to guard the ancestral court. Only when the 3 sides were peaceful would he get up and go to the east. Can Wakako and Xiao Qingyi subdue the sects in the north? Are there too few people? Should we go and support them? In the ancestral court, a few transcendents were worried. In response, Jiang Chun waved his hand and said, Extraordinary humans are no longer able to influence the situation of this battle. Just let the 2 of them go. Treat it as a form of training. But what if something happens? Hua Liani frowned. They are your brothers. How can you not worry? You're thinking too much. I think Wakako and Xiao Qingyi's journey to the north this time will be smooth. The major forces will treat them warmly and sign contracts one after another, Jiang Chun said with a smile. One had to know that in the past few days, both the south and the west had been subdued, so the other forces must have received the news. Under the influence of the ancestral court, how could the northern forces dare to resist? Boss, this is so boring. We were halfway through the war and had just reached the central part of the north when the other sects and forces came to pledge their allegiance to us. They even signed the contract. 1 day later, Wakako and Xiao Qingyi came back with resentment. Behind them were more than a dozen experts at the level of the breakers. Isn't it good to save trouble? Jiang Chun said in annoyance. We represent the major forces and sects in the north to join the ancestral court. Greetings, First Court Master. At this moment, the dozen or so experts at the level of the breakers lowered their heads and bowed to Jiang Chun. Moreover, they once again signed a contract with Jiang Chun to forever join the ancestral court and never betray it. All of you will go and settle down the people in your respective forces. Then, all the transcendents and above in your forces will gather at the ancestral court. Jiang Qin ordered. The 9 ancient spirits were about to return, and the 3 Yang realms and the 3 Yin realms were about to start a war. Under this great turmoil, cultivators below the transcendents could not participate. Forcefully participating was equivalent to courting death. Jiang Qin clearly told these experts at the level of the breakers to open a small world or seal the sect to protect the others and their forces. It's time for me to set off. After explaining everything, Jiang Qin stood up and looked to the east with a sneer on his face. Jiang Qin knew very well that although the 3 sides had submitted, many forces must have fled to the east. Now, the east could be said to be the last place for those forces in the upper-class world to survive. Since you are unwilling to submit, then, this time, I will really beat you until you submit. Jiang Qin whispered, his eyes cold. Setting off from the ancestral court, Jiang Qin went straight to the major worlds in the east. On this day, the sects of the major forces in the east were closed, but all the transcendents and even the experts at the level of the breakers had gathered together. They were waiting for Jiang Qin's arrival at the edge of the east. Moreover, they also sent people to send a message that if Jiang Qin dared to go, they would definitely not be soft-hearted. Go back and tell them that this venerable one is here. Jiang Qin's response was very strong, and he still went on the road alone. He knew that if he wanted to make those people submit, he had to use strength. The only way was to fight. Jiang Qin's speed was very fast. From the ancestral court, it took him 3 days to reach the border of the eastern world. When he arrived, he saw that there was immortal qi everywhere, which was emitted by the experts at the level of the breakers. Broken roads appeared under their feet, as if they were provoking Jiang Qin, but it was more of a deterrent. In their eyes, Jiang Qin coming alone was undoubtedly courting death. You really dare to come? Don't you see how many people we have here? There are 6 experts at the level of the breakers, 17 top transcendents, and more than 70 top emperors. Do you think you can defeat us all by yourself? The leaders of the breakers were very confident, especially when they saw Jiang Qin alone. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. The ancestral court was established to unify the upper-class world and fight against the enemy together. Jiang Qin said, only when the world is unified can we have the strength to fight against the 3 realms of yin and yang. Otherwise, we are scattered sand and will be defeated with one strike. Your ancestral court wants to be the master of the upper-class world, but we won't agree. We have cultivated for several eras, transcended the mortal world, and stepped on the broken road. How can we be ordered by others, let alone submit to them? If we really fight, we are enough to fight against the ancestral court. You don't want to see a situation where both sides suffer, do you? These people didn't attack immediately. It was more like they were reasoning with Jiang Qin. Of course, these people were right, but Jiang Qin felt that he was not wrong. In troubled times, someone had to stand up. Even after this matter, no matter how the future generations evaluated him, whether it was good or bad, Jiang Qin would not care. Everyone has their own pride, and they all have their own opinions. The only way is to have a fight. In the world of cultivators, there is no battle that can't be solved. If there is, then let's fight. If there is, then let's fight to the end. Jiang Qin narrowed his eyes and stretched out his arms. 3 Tao souls appeared behind him, and thousands of auspicious lights appeared in the sky. Chapter 1385. The surroundings were silent, and the sky was filled with auspicious lights. It was as if all the light in the world was shrouding Jiang Qin's body. The providence of the great Tao enveloped his body, and all sorts of techniques appeared. There was even a clock slowly swinging behind him. Who dares to fight me? At this moment, Jiang Qin roared. The inextinguishable flame burned around him, and the emperor's vine behind him was like a tree that supported the world. Before him, a green lamp burned, as if it was guiding him on the path to victory. No one made a sound. No one opened their mouths. Everyone was silent at this moment. Some people were terrified. They couldn't believe that Jiang Qin's strength could increase to such a level in an instant. Some people were scared and didn't dare to fight. Even the powerhouses at the level of breakers were retreating. They saw that under Jiang Chen's feet, there was a pair of footprints that reached the end of the broken path. There were even traces of footprints that seemed to have stepped on the edge of the broken path. This was too terrifying. Everyone knew what those traces of footprints meant. They were trying to connect the broken path and reopen the gate of immortality. Who dares to fight me? At this moment, Jiang Chen roared again. The flame of the heavenly torch burned and turned into a green longsword that breathed in and out chaotic sword chi. This time someone stepped out. His expression was serious, but there was still a trace of confidence in his eyes. This was an old monster who had lived for many eras. His cultivation was at the end of the broken path, but he had been arrogant until this generation. He had witnessed glory, he had seen darkness, and he had met many heaven's favorites. But in the end, he was the only one of his generation who had reached this step. He had the right to be arrogant. However, today, he felt that his heart had been bedeviled. He stared at Jiang Chen and thought for a long time. Then he slowly opened his mouth and said, "I will fight you. If you win, the 8 tribes will submit to you." When the 8 tribes' ancestors fight, not many people in the world can fight against them. They are powerhouses at the level of breakers who have lived for at least 3 eras. If they fight, victory will be assured. Many people looked excited. They all wanted to see Jiang Chen defeated, or even killed. However, the higher the cultivation, the more silent they became. This was because they could see that the 8 tribe patriarchs did not have much confidence in this battle. Perhaps the 8 division ancestor was unwilling to admit that he, a circuit-breaking level expert who had lived for several generations, could not compare to a junior. "Just because of your words, I can spare your life." Jiang Chen didn't have any feelings at the moment. After all, this group of people wanted to kill him before. Now, if it weren't for the fact that the 8 tribe patriarchs were willing to make the 8 tribe patriarchs submit, with Jiang Chen's personality, he would definitely kill them. Fight! Kill! In the next moment, 2 furious roars came from their mouths. In the blink of an eye, the light in this place expanded greatly. The void instantly collapsed, and everything within a radius of 10,000 miles was turned into nothingness. Within the nothingness, figures were everywhere. Those were 2 people rapidly exchanging blows. Sword glows swept out, flames blazed, and strands of laws shuttled through the void like chains. "You're just a junior." "I'm not convinced." After half an incense stick's time, the 8 tribe patriarchs roared angrily. An auspicious aura appeared on his body. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be the phantoms of the 8 great demon clans. He used the demon clan as his foundation and comprehended the demon cultivation method. As a human, he combined the two. This was the reason why he could stand proudly now. Now, he had used his trump card. The phantoms of the 8 great demon clans rushed out, carrying all the strength in his body, as if they were going to split the world. However, in the next moment, a green sword light swept across. The phantoms of the 8 great demon clans were shattered, along with the 8 tribe patriarchs' physical bodies. However, the 8 tribe patriarchs' physical bodies were quickly rebuilt. Then, he retreated from the void and stood in the distance, staring at Jiang Chen. After a few breaths, the 8 tribe patriarchs smiled bitterly and sighed. "The new generation surpasses the old. I have to admit defeat." Then, he knelt down on one knee in front of everyone, lowered his head, and raised his hand to salute, saying, "In the name of the 8 tribes, I have made a contract with Jiang Chen of the Ancestral Court. In this life, I will submit to the Ancestral Court. If I violate it, I will be injured by the heavenly Tao." What? He really submitted? Even the 8 tribe patriarchs are no match for him? Is this Jiang Chen really so strong? At this moment, everyone was stunned. Even the other powerhouses at the end of the broken path twitched the corners of their mouths. They felt a chill down their spines. They knew the strength of the 8 tribe patriarchs. He was a genuine old monster, but now, he was defeated in half an incense stick's time. "Take your 8 tribes to the Ancestral Court." Jiang Chen did not give him a good look because he was the one who had won the battle. He had won it with his strength. Who else dares to fight me? At this moment, Jiang Chen looked at the other powerhouses at the breaking level. As for the extraordinaries and emperors, he ignored them all. Jiang Chen did not even care about the ordinary breaking level powerhouses. With his Tao soul out, the law of time lingering around him, and the fate of the great Tao on his body, it would not be an exaggeration to say that Jiang Chen was invincible. When the three realms of yin and yang retreat and the ancient spirits fall asleep, if we rebel against the ancestral court, will the ancestral court agree? An expert at the end of the broken path said, "We don't want to submit to anyone, but if the ancestral court is really for this great world, then it's not impossible for us to submit for the time being." There was indeed no problem with what he said. After all, no one wanted to be a minister. They all wanted to be a king. However, today's matter had already reached this point. How could Jiang Chen agree? If it could be solved so easily, why would he have to fight everywhere? He would not have come here. What do you think the ancestral court is? You think you can enter and leave as you please? Since you've entered the ancestral court, it's for life. Jiang Chen said coldly, "Don't mention any conditions to me. I've given you a chance before, but you insisted on joining forces and forcing me to use force. Now either submit or die." As soon as these words were spoken, the group of people on the opposite side was completely dumbfounded. They originally thought that Jiang Chen would agree, but they did not expect Jiang Chen's attitude to be so firm. Submit or die. How should they choose? "We are willing to submit." Swear immediately that we will submit. In an instant, many faction leaders swore that they did not want to fight Jiang Chen head-on. After all, even the 8 ancestors had submitted. If they did not submit, they would really be waiting for death. However, there were still 2 powerhouses at the end of the broken path who remained silent. After a few breaths, the 2 of them cupped their hands at Jiang Chen. One of them said, "I'm not willing to submit. In today's battle, if I die, the faction I'm in will submit to the ancestral court and not rebel for the rest of my life." After saying that, he paused for a moment and said seriously, "But I would rather die in battle." Chapter 1386. To some, it was better to die than to submit. This was especially true for the powerhouses at the level of Roadbreaker. They had lived a glorious life. How could they be willing to be someone else's servant? Sometimes dignity was more important than anything else. "I will fulfill your wish." Jiang Chen showed no mercy. There was no need for him to show mercy. If the other party wanted to die, then Jiang Chen would fulfill his wish. As for losing a powerhouse at the end of the Roadbreaker, it seemed like a great loss to the world, but in reality, it didn't have much of an impact. As far as Jiang Chen was concerned, a true unification was much better than having a strong man at the end of the road. "I am the same. I have lived my whole life and made decisions. I don't want to submit to anyone." Another cultivator at the end of the Roadbreaker said. Hearing this, Jiang Chen's eyes shone brightly. "I will give you one last chance. The 2 of you come at me together. If you can beat me, you can live. Who doesn't want to live? But to us, dignity is engraved in our souls. It cannot be erased. If the 2 of you join forces, we might as well give up our dignity. We might as well submit." The 2 powerhouses at the end of the Roadbreaker refused. Then, one of them walked out and started a great battle with Jiang Chen. This battle didn't last very long. In just half an incense stick's worth of time, the entire world was raining blood. Strands of immortal chi also fell from the boundless void. This was also heaven's cry. Blood fell, and immortal chi fell. This meant that a powerhouse at the level of Roadbreaker had fallen. At this moment, all living beings in the world were shocked. After so many generations, this was the first time something like this had happened. In the eyes of all living beings, the powerhouses at the end of the Roadbreaker were invincible. They couldn't die. But now, such a person had actually fallen. Then, after another half an incense stick's worth of time, another strange phenomenon appeared. This meant that another powerhouse at the level of Roadbreaker had fallen. Many people saw what was happening on the battlefield through a secret method. They also saw the 2 dead bodies of strong people at the breaker's level at Jiang Chen's feet. "Gu Ling is inside. Yin and Yang are outside. This Jiang Chun actually started a civil war, an eternal sinner. Killing two of our great Thousand Worlds breakers at this time is undoubtedly weakening the strength of the great Thousand World. Many people lamented and sighed. There were even some who recorded today's events into the annals of history. Naturally, their descriptions of Jiang Chun were pitch black. Few people said that Jiang Chun did the right thing, and even fewer people came out to support him. Even those who had submitted to the ancestral court were silent at this moment. In the eyes of many people, Jiang Chun actually started an internal strife at such a critical moment in the great Thousand World. This was indeed too much. However, in the end, there were still people who stood out. They didn't explain much and only expressed their support for Jiang Chun. Among them were the three great demon clans, the evil race, and Wakako. As for even more people, although they didn't dare to say anything on the surface, they still secretly thought that Jiang Chun was in the wrong. Is what you did right or wrong? The 8-tribe ancestor asked. His cold gaze was enough to explain everything. Although the 8-tribe ancestor had submitted, in his heart, Jiang Chun was still in the wrong. There's no right or wrong. Time will prove everything, Jiang Chun said softly, ignoring the gazes of the secular world. This was because he knew what he was going to do. If the great Thousand World was not unified, it would be like a plate of loose sand. No matter how much loose sand there was, it could not withstand the impact of a huge rock. If they were not unified today, when the Yin and Yang realms attacked in the future, the great Thousand World would most likely be destroyed in an instant. Whether it's right or wrong is left for future generations to comment on, not for you people of the current era. Jiang Chun said softly and glanced at the two powerhouses at the end of the road beside him. There was no trace of pity in his eyes. This was the other party's choice. Whether it was right or wrong was no longer important. After all, the two of them were already dead. Arrange for the people of your respective forces to open up small worlds for protection. Cultivators above the transcendent being level, enter the ancestral court and prepare for battle at any time. Jiang Chun ordered. Then he stepped into the void and rushed toward the ancestral court. However, the backlash of the great Tao's providence was too violent. Jiang Chun could not hold on halfway and directly fainted in the void. In a daze, he drifted in the void. The myriad change heavenly lamp flickered with light, concealing his aura. This was to protect him. After all, with Jiang Chun's current state, once someone found him and wanted to make a move on him, no one would be able to save him. Time passed, and the people of the ancestral court became anxious. They waited for 3 days, but Jiang Chun did not return. However, the people of the ancestral court did not dare to make a sound. They were worried that someone would find Jiang Chun after receiving the news and even kill Jiang Chun. For a time, the people of the ancestral court secretly attacked and began to search for Jiang Chun's traces. You've never been invincible, but you've always been the one with the heaviest responsibility. On the 6th day, a crack appeared in the void. Then, the Empress walked over with a green lamp in her hand. There was a different emotion in her eyes. She gently picked up Jiang Chun and left the void. If Jiang Chun was still awake at this moment, he would definitely be shocked because the green lamp in the Empress's hand was exactly the same as the myriad change heavenly lamp. This was the origin heavenly lamp that came from the same source as the myriad change heavenly lamp. There was a very ancient legend that when the world was first created, there was a lamp in the center of the world that illuminated the entire world. Only then did the world have light and darkness. And the lamp that illuminated the entire world was the myriad change heavenly lamp. No, to be precise, it was the lamp before the myriad change heavenly lamp and the origin heavenly lamp were separated. Some people guess that when the world was first created, light appeared and all things were enlightened. Then that lamp merged with the great Tao and turned into a Tao soul. It was divided into two, which meant that Yin and Yang maintained the balance of the entire world. If these two lamps merged one day, then the entire world would return to its original state. When the world was first created, everything was primordial. However, These were all rumors. The world had seen the myriad change heavenly lamp a few times, but they had never seen the real origin heavenly lamp. This was because the myriad change heavenly lamp was yang, and the origin heavenly lamp was yin. One was light, and the other was darkness. The light was always there, but the darkness was not. But no one would have thought that the origin heavenly lamp really existed and was in the Empress's hands. You didn't hesitate to use the origin heavenly lamp to find him. Aren't you afraid? At this moment, in the small world where the Empress was, Ji Rumeng was lying lazily on the bed. She glanced at Jiang Chun, who was still in a coma. Frowning, she said, "In the past, he warned you that the source heavenly lamp isn't allowed to exist in the myriad transformations heavenly lamp. I am worried about him." The Empress sighed softly. After putting away the origin heavenly lamp, she looked at Jiang Chun lovingly. Her slightly cold fingertips slowly brushed across Jiang Chen's cheek as she whispered, "How many years has it been since I saw you so well?" Chapter 1387. How many years had the Empress and Jiang Chun known each other? Jiang Chun did not remember in this lifetime, but the Empress remembered. Back then, the reason why Jiang Chun rejected the Empress was not because he did not have feelings, but because the two had a special relationship. One possessed the myriad transformations heavenly lamp, the other possessed the Tongyuan heavenly lamp. Once the two combined and Dao souls touched, it was very likely that the two Dao souls would fuse together. Although Jiang Chun and the Empress did not dare to confirm whether that rumor was true or not, they still had to be on guard. If the two Dao souls fused and heaven and earth returned to align, then all the living beings in this world would die out. No one was willing to see such a thing happen. It was also precisely so that since ancient times, although Jiang Chun and the Empress knew each other, under normal circumstances, where there was Jiang Chun, there would not be the Empress. Where there was the Empress, there would not be Jiang Chun. Hiding from each other for so many eras, so what? This era has thought it through and wants to be together? Ji Rumeng teased. Actually, that's also just a legend. It might not be true. But, he said, in that lifetime, where there is the myriad transformations heavenly lamp, there can't be the Tongyuan heavenly lamp. The Empress's eyes carried a trace of worry and helplessness. She possessed the Tongyuan heavenly lamp, but Jiang Chun just happened to have the myriad transformations heavenly lamp. This, when he wakes up, you send him back, the Empress said softly. Her gentle gaze was like water as she stared at Jiang Chun. After a few breaths, she slowly got up and directly left this place. She had always listened to Jiang Chen's words. Where there was the myriad transformations heavenly lamp, there would not be the Tongyuan heavenly lamp. Ji Rumeng looked at the Empress's departing back view and could not help laughing bitterly a few times. She had a very good relationship with the Empress and was even more clear about how terrifying the Empress's talent was. If not for this matter, the Empress would have long reached the end of the broken path several eras ago as a powerhouse. However, in order to suppress the Tongyuan heavenly lamp, the Empress had always suppressed her cultivation to emperor level. After several eras, her cultivation had never changed. This was undoubtedly a kind of torture to any cultivator. After all, every cultivator's ultimate goal was to cultivate cultivation to the peak, without exception. Otherwise, why would he cultivate? However, for the sake of Jiang Chun, the Empress was willing to give up the end of the path. Does he really know how much you've done in the mortal world? Ji Rumeng sighed. After saying this, Ji Rumeng seemed to be a little angry on behalf of the Empress. She walked over to Jiang Chen's side and looked at the unconscious Jiang Chun. She couldn't help but smile. Then, Ji Rumeng lifted her foot and stepped on Jiang Chen's face. She teased, "I didn't dare to hit you when you were awake, but now, I'll take it as avenging the Empress." Jiang Chun was completely unaware that his divine soul was in a state of near annihilation. More than 10 days later, when Jiang Chun woke up, he touched his cheek involuntarily. It hurt a little. This is, a few breaths later, Jiang Chun came to his senses, wondering why half of his face was swollen. He quickly used his god force to repair it. "Awake!" Ji Ruming stood to the side with a faint smile and asked, "Does it hurt? Hurt? What do you mean?" Jiang Chen was dumbfounded. He thought Ji Ruming was talking about his previous battle. He subconsciously nodded and said, "It hurts. It's all thanks to the Empress. She brought you back. Otherwise, who knows where you would have drifted to now? You might have lost your way in the endless void," Ji Ruming said. Upon hearing this, Jiang Chen looked around but didn't see the Empress. He couldn't help but ask curiously, "Where is she?" "She can't stay for long. Because of some reasons, she has been chased by the reincarnation hunters. She can't stay in one place for long," Ji Ruming said. When she said this, Ji Ruming looked at Jiang Chen with a trace of resentment in her eyes. Ji Ruming knew best why the Empress had been chased by the reincarnation hunters. In fact, the reincarnation hunters weren't chasing the Empress or Jiang Chen, but the myriad transformation heavenly lamp. However, in order to protect Jiang Chen, the Empress used the source heavenly lamp as a guide to transform into the myriad transformation heavenly lamp and attract the reincarnation hunters to her body. In this way, the Empress had been hiding all this time, but in exchange, Jiang Chen was at peace. The Empress didn't tell Jiang Chen about this, and she didn't let Ji Ruming tell Jiang Chen either. What an infatuated person. She has sacrificed too much for such a man. Ji Ruming sighed in her heart. She really didn't know what was so good about Jiang Chen. "How long have I been unconscious?" Jiang Chen asked. "More than 10 days, Ji Ruming said. "You should go back. You've disappeared for more than 10 days. The ancestral court is probably in chaos." "Okay." Jiang Chen didn't say much. He knew the current situation of the great wide world. After getting up and thanking her, he was about to leave. "Does the ancestral court have the ability to fight against the 9 ancient spirits?" Ji Ruming asked. Jiang Chen stopped in his tracks with his back facing Ji Ruming. After a few breaths of silence, he smiled bitterly and said, "We have to fight even if we can't win." "Heh." Ji Ruming sneered. No one knew what this laughter meant. In the end, Jiang Chen left. After leaving the small world of the Empress, he traveled all the way back to the ancestral court in half a day. "Boss, you're finally back. We were so anxious." As soon as Jiang Chen arrived at the ancestral court, Wakako and the others rushed out. When they saw that Jiang Chen was intact, they were finally relieved. However, Jiang Chen could see that there was something wrong with these people's expressions. Especially Wakako. This guy's aura was dispirited and very weak. "What's wrong?" Jiang Chen asked. "The 9 ancient spirits are back," Wakako said in a deep voice and handed a silk book to Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen opened the silk book and saw that there was only one word on it. It was a huge word written in blood, "War." It was obvious that the 9 ancient spirits had returned from the border. After devouring enough essence, they did not fall asleep again. Instead, they were going to war with Jiang Chen. This was a letter of war. "You fought with them?" Jiang Chen looked at Wakako and asked worriedly, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine." Fortunately, Senior Rotten Man acted in time and intimidated them. Otherwise, the ancestral court would be gone. Wakako sighed. Although the great wide world had been unified, those breaking-level powerhouses had yet to gather in the ancestral court. They were all opening up small worlds and setting up formation boundaries. They had to settle down the people of their respective forces first before coming over. After all, they knew very well that this great turmoil could be said to be the most terrifying one since ancient times. The Yin and Yang worlds and the Dark Blood era had arrived at the same time. If they did not take complete protective measures, everything would be destroyed. "Where's Rotten Man?" Jiang Chen asked again. "He's healing. He fought the 9 ancient spirits alone and was injured quite badly." Wakako pointed in the direction of the back mountain with a face full of admiration. "Senior Rotten Man is really fierce." Chapter 1388. The back of the mountain was silent. This was a place where the higher-ups of the ancestral court could come. Now, this place was surrounded by layers of formations, and no one was allowed to get close. This was because the Rotten Man's injuries were very serious. and no one dared to disturb him. "Are you okay?" Jiang Chen came in and looked at the rotten man who was healing his injuries. He transferred some of his essence blood to him. Jiang Chen's physique was extraordinary, and his essence blood could be said to be a holy healing medicine. Even the injuries of a broken path expert could be healed with his essence blood. The rotten man did not speak. He closed his eyes, and divine light flickered on his body. Tao circled around him like a dragon. After a full 2 hours, the rotten man opened his eyes and waved his hand. "I'm fine now." "How strong are the 9 ancient spirits after swallowing the essence blood?" Jiang Chen asked. "Very strong. Even before reaching the extreme sublimation stage, he is much stronger than before," the rotten man said in a deep voice. "If I hadn't fused with part of my true spirit, I'm afraid I would have died in their hands." "Then they retreated?" Jiang Chen frowned. Logically speaking, the 9 ancient spirits should not have retreated so easily when the rotten man was injured. There must be a reason for this. "When I was injured, the 9 ancient spirits and I felt a pair of eyes staring at us from afar," the rotten man said. Rotten said in a low voice, "I don't know who it is, but just a glance from afar made me feel a sense of fear. We're at the end of the broken path. People of the same level won't have this kind of feeling when they look at us." Speaking of this, the rotten man could not help but reveal a trace of worry. After a moment of silence, he said, "I suspect there are still land deities in this great 1,000 world." "What?" Jiang Chen exclaimed. "Land deities were invincible in the 3 realms of yin and yang, not to mention the great 1,000 world. In the great 1,000 world, there was only one land deity, and that was the rotten man who had fused with all of his true spirit." But now, hearing the rotten man's words, could it be that there were other land deities in the great 1,000 world? "It's really possible," the rotten said. "The world has gone through several eras. Some were brilliant, while others were low-key. Some people never came out and cultivated in the dark. Perhaps, after several generations of accumulation, there really are people like me who have become Earth immortals," said the rotten. However, no one knew what kind of attitude Liu Dixian had toward the vast 1,000 worlds. Was he looking down on the world, or was he scheming something else? However, the presence of a land god who had yet to reveal his identity made everyone uneasy. However, it had to be said that if it weren't for the appearance of the person who seemed to be Liu Dixian, the 9 ancient spirits would not have retreated. At that time, the ancestral court would flow with rivers of blood. If I had fused with all of my true spirit, I wouldn't be living here either. The rotten man sighed. Even now, he was still thinking about that part of the true spirit in the ancient underworld, and he felt extremely aggrieved. "It doesn't matter. In a few days, the top experts of all the major forces will come, and we will have the capital to contend with the 9 ancient spirits." Jiang Chen comforted him. "The 9 ancient spirits probably won't sleep this time. They went to the central dynasty and turned it into a forbidden area." The rotten man said, "Perhaps the path to immortality will open again in this life. They want to ascend to the immortal world in this life." The only goal of the cultivators in this world, whether it was the vast 1,000 worlds or the 3 realms of yin and yang, was to become an immortal. However, since prehistoric times, the path to immortality had been cut off, and the opportunity to become an immortal in the 3 realms of yin and yang had been suppressed. No one could become an immortal. However, this life was different. They had encountered many strange things. Perhaps all of this was because this life was different. Many people guessed that the path to immortality was very likely to be continued in this life. The existence of the 9 ancient spirits is a hidden danger after all, Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. "It's time to go and have a talk with them." After that, Jiang Chen took out the letter of challenge in his hand, frowned, and said, "This time, I'll go alone." "You're going alone? Aren't you courting death?" The rotten man's face darkened, and he said, "Don't think that you're invincible just because you have the fate of the great Tao. The 9 ancient spirits have finished devouring their essence, and their strength has recovered to its peak. If they sublimate to the extreme, even if you have the fate of the great Tao, you might not be able to suppress them, Although I might not be able to suppress them, they won't be able to hurt me. Jiang Chun was very confident. During this period of time, he had been fighting and accumulating rapidly. He felt that he was about to break through. Once he broke through, Jiang Chen's combat strength would definitely skyrocket. Combined with the fate of the Great Tao, Jiang Chen's broken path might be further than anyone else's. This time, Jiang Chun went alone because he wanted to use this opportunity to break through. Only by making use of the battle could he better stabilize his foundation and comprehend the Tao. Be careful. If there's any danger, immediately send a message, the Rotten Man said seriously. Jiang Chun nodded and finally left the ancestral court, flying in the direction of the Central Dynasty. The 9 ancient spirits had built the Forbidden Zone here, so the Central Dynasty was naturally destroyed. Back then, in the vast central area, even the mighty Holy Sky Empire could not withstand the attacks of the 9 ancient spirits. Thinking back, everything seemed to have happened yesterday. Jiang Chun sighed. This world was so cruel. A prosperous dynasty was like a speck of dust in front of the top experts, dissipating with a wave of their hand. Half a day later, near the Central Dynasty, when Jiang Chun arrived, he saw the scenery of the Forbidden Zone. Immortal chi rose, everything bloomed, and rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged like a tide. The air flickered with the radiance of the Great Tao, and auspicious signs appeared in the sky. At first glance, it was like a paradise on earth. A forbidden zone, but it's built to look like a paradise. It seems that the 9 ancient spirits are very obsessed with becoming immortals, Jiang Chun said softly. He was even more curious as to why the 9 ancient spirits had been blocked outside the immortal world. When they had passed the immortal ascension tribulation, the immortal path had not collapsed. Logically speaking, they should have been able to enter the immortal world. I am the first court master of the ancestral court, Jiang Chun. I'm here to pay you a visit. At this moment, Jiang Chun tidied up his appearance. His expression was serious, his aura was masculine, and his voice sounded like thunder. Impudent. This is the forbidden zone of the 9 saints. How dare a mortal like you make a fuss here? What ancestral court? I've never heard of it. Get out of here. In the forbidden zone, the 9 ancient spirits shouted one after another, their words filled with resentment. Obviously, they were very concerned about the fact that Jiang Chun and the others had forced them to the border. Everyone, have you forgotten so quickly? It's also because of me that you went to the border, Jiang Chun said with a smile. He exposed their scars directly and didn't give them any face at all. Chapter 1389. Jiang Chun, I think you're courting death. At this moment, an ancient spirit walked out. His face was gloomy, and the murderous intent in his eyes was undisguised. He just stared at Jiang Chun, and when he saw that Jiang Chun didn't have any luck on him, he raised one of his hands. Jiang Chun saw this and laughed. He waved his hand and said, "Don't worry. Since I dared to come, it means that I have the ability to protect myself. It's not good for everyone if you act rashly. Besides, your purpose is to become an immortal. This life is different. The path to becoming an immortal might really open. Now, if you really fight with me, there will be injuries and deaths. If the path to becoming an immortal is opened, won't it affect your immortal ascension?" Hearing this, the ancient spirit's mouth twitched. He raised his arm and slowly lowered it. He had to admit that Jiang Chun was right. One should know that one could not become an immortal just because he had passed the tribulation. Next, he had to walk the path to becoming an immortal and climb the stairway to heaven. The process was very dangerous. It was like going through a tribulation. If he was not careful, he would die. We are not afraid of you, but you should have heard that there might be a demigod in this world, the ancient spirit said in a low voice. We don't know what he's thinking. I guess we won't dare to act rashly. Otherwise, with our current strength, it's easy to kill you. I don't know if it's easy, but you won't dare to do it. Jiang Chun was also very strong. He did not show any weakness in his words. This made the ancient spirit even angrier. He raised his arm again. Don't be anxious. Let me finish. Jiangchen said, "The path to becoming an immortal in the great thousand world is broken. I think you all know that. But I know that there are two places where the path to becoming an immortal is not broken. Oh, there are other places where the path to becoming an immortal is not broken. Kid, don't lie to us. There's only one path to becoming an immortal in this world. There are no other paths." The 9 ancient spirits spoke. Although they did not believe it, they were obviously excited. Jiangchen heard this and laughed. He could not help but take out the lamp and said, "Do you know what this is? This is... I've never seen it before. It's very ancient. It has a unique aura." The 9 great ancient spirits were stunned. Even if they had lived for several eras, they had never seen this thing before. This is the everlasting lamp. Once lit, it will allow the experts of the 3 realms of Yang to descend directly into the great thousand world. Jiangchen said, "Of course, that's not the point. The point is that I know one thing. The path to immortality in the 3 realms of Yin and Yang is not broken. It's just that someone has suppressed the opportunity to become immortal." "So, what do you mean?" The attitude of the 9 great ancient spirits had obviously improved. After all, to them, they could ignore the world, but they could not ignore the hope of becoming an immortal. Even if there was only a sliver of hope, they still had to try. You can go to the 3 realms of Yin and Yang to become immortals. The path to immortality there has yet to be severed. Jiangchen said, "However, the opportunity to become immortal there has been suppressed." After saying that, Jiangchen frowned. After a moment of silence, he said, "But you are not from the 3 realms of Yin and Yang. You are creatures of the great thousand world. If you use the Tao fruit of immortality in the great thousand world to walk the path of immortality in the 3 realms of Yin and Yang, you might not be affected by the opportunity to become an immortal. Perhaps you can become an immortal." As soon as he said that, the 9 great ancient spirits all walked out of the forbidden area. They stared at Jiangchen, their eyes burning with hope. For many eras, they had wanted to become immortals. Now, after hearing Jiangchen's words, although they felt that it was nonsense, it could be considered a kind of hope. Moreover, in the eyes of many people, becoming an immortal was nonsense. "So, we need to enter the 3 realms of Yin and Yang?" One of the ancient spirits frowned and then reacted. His face darkened as he said, "You want to use us as tools again? Boy, you asked us to go to the border before, but you still used us as tools. Now you're using this trick again." Several ancient spirits came to their senses, and terrifying anger erupted like tangible sharp swords, surrounding Jiangchen. Jiangchen sneered and said, "It's up to you to believe it or not. Anyway, you have no hope of becoming an immortal now. Why don't you give it a try? Moreover, with the strength of the 9 of you, as long as you go in and out together, is there any place in the world that you can't go? So what if you go to the 3 realms of Yin and the 3 realms of Yang? If you can't become an immortal, you can just come back." The 9 great ancient spirits were stunned for a moment when they heard that. They thought a lot, but they still felt that Jiangchen's words made sense. With the strength of the 9 of them, and in their current state, if the 9 of them ascended to the extreme at the same time, even Lu Dixian would have to go around them. If so, then why not give it a try? Wait, there's a very serious problem. An ancient spirit's face darkened again. He said in a deep voice, "There's a boundary wall between the worlds. We can't break the boundary wall." That's right. When the 3 realms of Yang entered the great thousand world, they used the strength of the entire 3 realms of Yang to open a passage to the great thousand world. As for the 9 of us, even if we ascend to the extreme, it's difficult to open a passage to the 3 realms of Yang. The ancient spirits' faces darkened, and they secretly thought that Jiangchen's method wouldn't work. Jiangchen already had a plan for this, and he had thought it through a long time ago. "As long as I light up this lamp, the boundary wall between the 2 worlds will naturally collapse. At that time, the people of the 3 realms of Yang can directly enter the great thousand world, and the creatures of the great thousand world can also directly descend to the 3 realms of Yang." Jiangchen said, "However, Jiang also told the 9 great ancient spirits that he didn't intend to light up the lamp for the time being. After all, it wasn't a good thing to let the 3 realms of Yang enter the great thousand world in advance. Moreover, this idea came from Jiang, and the lamp was also in Jiang's hands. The 9 great ancient spirits wanted to eat for free? How could there be such a good thing in the world? When the people of the 3 realms of Yang break through the boundary, we'll go over and fight with them. When the battle reaches its climax, when the experts of the 3 realms of Yang descend to the great thousand world, I'll light up the lamp. At that time, there will be no experts in the 3 realms of Yang. When the 9 of you go over, won't the sky be the first, and the earth be the second, and the 3 of you be the third? At that time, you could do whatever you want in the 3 realms of Yang. Jiang said. These words were indeed beautiful, but the 9 great ancient spirits weren't fools. They immediately understood that Jiang still wanted to use them as tools. Once the 3 realms of Yang invades the great thousand world, you want us to help the great thousand world block for a while? An ancient spirit said in a deep voice. You want to use us as tools again? Don't say that. Jiang said seriously. You must have descendants in the great thousand world. If the great thousand world is really destroyed, you will all have no descendants. Even if it's not for the great thousand world, you have to make some contributions to your descendants. Besides, I'm not asking you to die. Chapter 1390. Jiang was famous for being a scammer. Especially when he spoke, people had no choice but to believe him. These 9 ancient spirits were old monsters who had lived for tens of thousands of years. But in front of Jiang's words, they really believed it. I'm ashamed to say that we came from the great thousand world, but in order to become immortals, we started the dark blood era again and again. One of the ancient spirits sighed. If it weren't for becoming immortals, they wouldn't be willing to do so. Just take it as making up for our mistakes. Forget it, it's time to do something for this great thousand world. In the end, some of the 9 ancient spirits were remorseful, while others were expressionless, but they all agreed. Jiang was very happy. After saying goodbye to the 9 ancient spirits one by one, he happily returned to the ancestral court. How is it? Boss, are you okay? As soon as he returned, Jiang Lu and the others surrounded him, looking worried. Especially Bai Fengyu and the others. They stepped forward and touched Jiang. This was to check Jiang's injuries. However, there was clearly something wrong with the way he examined his injuries. We didn't fight. Jiang's face was slightly red, and he pushed away a few female disciples. With a serious expression, he said, You should also seize the time to cultivate. Otherwise, when chaos comes, you won't even have the ability to protect yourselves. As soon as these words came out, Bai Fengyu and the others immediately became embarrassed. It wasn't that their talent was not enough, but that they were given too little time. From the moment they stepped on the path of cultivation until now, how many years had they cultivated? To be able to cultivate to this extent, they were already considered peerless geniuses. However, the higher the realm, the harder it was to improve. It wasn't something that could be broken through overnight. Master, if we want to take another step forward with our current cultivation, we need time and accumulation. Bai Fengyu pouted, feeling very helpless. They were different from Jiang. They didn't have many reincarnations, so they could only cultivate slowly. I have a way to increase your cultivation in a short period of time, Jiang said. He had been thinking about this idea for a long time, and it might really work. I have mastered the laws of time. If I can form a domain with the power of time, I can mess up the flow of time inside and outside. 10,000 years in a blink of an eye. Jiang frowned and said, If that's the case, 10,000 years in here will only be 1 year in the outside world. However, this was only Jiang's guess. It was still very difficult to achieve it. However, Jiang had to give it a try. Otherwise, there wouldn't be much time left for the people of Ancestral Court. Don't disturb me during this period of time. Let me think about what to do, Jiang whispered. Without another word, he entered the back of the mountain. Seeing Jiang leave in a hurry, The faces of Wakako and the others turned ugly. They knew that Jiang Chun was paving the way for them, and they were ashamed that they were not strong enough. Sigh. In the end, we've dragged boss down. Master is in a difficult position. The few of them sighed. It was different from their usual laughter. Only now did they understand that this ancestral court was still being defended by Jiang Chun alone. If it weren't for Jiang Chun, would Rotten be able to guard ancestral court? Go and cultivate, Wakako said. Time passed slowly. A full month had passed since Jiang Chun entered the back of the mountain. Today, a rumbling sound came from the back of the mountain. Then, auspicious clouds fell from the sky, and several formations rose like clouds, covering the sky and the sun. The formations were all defensive formations. At the same time, there were many restrictions and barriers. Under the layers of protection, the back of the mountain was like a monolith, unbreakable. Dong! After another day, a sound that sounded like a large bell rang out. The space in the back of the mountain seemed to distort, and the scenery became hazy like chaos. What's going on? I keep feeling strange. Yeah, I feel like my movements have slowed down. At this moment, everyone in the ancestral court felt that something was amiss, especially those with high cultivation bases. This feeling was even stronger. Could it be that boss really thought of a way to mess up time? Everyone thought, but they didn't go to the back of the mountain. Another month later, a person covered in blood and half of his body was split open staggered out of the back of the mountain. The moment he walked out, he touched the blood on his face and said excitedly, "It's done. This is boss? Master?" At this moment, everyone rushed over. When they saw Jiang Chun's miserable state, their hearts ached. They knew that Jiang Chun hadn't gone out during this period of time, nor had he experienced a battle. And now, his injuries were obviously caused by messing up time. I stripped off my own time law power and injected it into this domain. Now, the time in that domain is different from the outside world. Jiang Chun said excitedly, "A year outside is 100 years inside. Although it can't reach 10,000 years in a glance, with your talent, you can also step into the broken road after cultivating for 10,000 years." With that, Jiang Chun seemed to be too excited. His eyes rolled back, and he fainted on the spot. Fortunately, the rotten man and the other strong men at the breaker's level arrived in time. They protected Jiang Chun's holy soul with their doctrine methods and saved his life. This kid really doesn't want to live. He actually stripped off his own laws. This is equivalent to slashing his own soul. He's lucky to be able to survive. It's a pity that such a supreme law will be lost forever. Rotten and the other side and looked at Jiang Lu and the others. Don't let his good intentions down. Hurry up and go in to cultivate. Is boss okay? Master, their eyes were slightly red. They opened their mouths, but didn't know what to say. Jiang Chun actually gave up the supreme time law for them. This kind of loss was not something that ordinary people could do, nor would they dare to do. He's fine. We're here to watch over him. Rotten said, "Hurry up and go in. This domain won't last more than 10 years. You only have 10 years to catch up to him. After 10 years, maybe." At this moment, Jiang Lu and the others didn't hesitate. Although they were worried about Jiang Chun and were reluctant to leave, they still walked into the domain in the end. When everyone had entered the field, Jiang Chun, who had been in a coma, woke up right away. Wiping the blood off his face, he said unhappily, "I've spoiled them. If I don't give them some pressure, they won't have the motivation to practice." "I know you're acting." Rotten pursed his lips. "It's just that you stripped off your time power. Don't you think it's a pity?" "What's there to pity? It's just time power. If I'm strong enough, I can abandon all other powers," Jiang Chun said. Chapter 1391. Some people cultivated the Tao of heaven and earth, some cultivated the power of all living beings, and some cultivated the self. And what Jiang Chun was practicing was the ego. To him, all power could be thrown away. As long as he was strong enough, he could break all Tao with one force. The Tao of the heavens and the power of all living beings would be reduced to ashes under a punch and a palm. Next, let's just wait. Jiang Qin stood up and looked at the powerhouses in the ancestral court. We don't have to go to the border to join in the fun. It's only a matter of time before the Yang Three Realms breaks through the border. Rest well and take care of your family. When the war begins, no one can guarantee that they will survive. When everyone heard this, some people looked sad, while others looked calm. This was because at their age, they might not have any descendants. There were also people who were indifferent to life and death. Although their descendants were still around, too many generations had passed. Those descendants probably didn't know who their ancestors were. Everything is up to fate. As long as the great wide world still exists, everything will be there. There was a trace of helplessness and sadness in everyone's words. Everyone knew that when the people of the Yin and Yang Three Realms descended on the great wide world, they might not be able to survive. In the end, everyone entered the main hall and talked and laughed without caring about the time. Even if they had grudges before, they had resolved them at this moment. After all, at the last moment of their lives, there was no hatred that could not be resolved. Jiang Qin, I have to say that you're really different. You have low cultivation, but high combat power. Even people of the older generation like us have to admire you. The 8 tribes patriarch sighed. Perhaps it has to do with your 10 reincarnations, but you're really strong. Seeing your rotten man is also admirable. If you didn't split that part of your true spirit, you would be immortal, Lu. The atmosphere in the main hall was very good. Some people were chatting, some were praising, and some were discussing their own experiences in comprehending the Tao. Jiang Qin looked at all of this with a smile. He sighed in his heart. How good would it be if things could always be like this? There was no war in the world, no bloodshed. Perhaps there was good and evil, but all living beings would be equal. There was no cultivation, no pursuit of fame and fortune. The sun rose and the moon rose. However, this kind of happy time always passed quickly. About 10 days later, somewhere in the great thousand world, dark clouds covered the sky, and Yin energy surged into the sky. It was as if countless evil spirits rushed out from the underworld. Rotten immediately rushed over and saw living beings with flesh and blood walking out of the Ghoul King Bell. Clearly, the people of the 3 Yin realms had arrived. On the same day, the border was broken, and the living beings of the 3 realms of Yang also stepped into the great thousand world. As for the cultivators of the greater thousand worlds at the border, all of them died in battle without exception. Who is the master of the great wide world now? I am Yang Zun of the Yang Three Realms. I have something to discuss with you. On this day, Yang Zun also came out. He no longer concealed himself, and his voice reverberated throughout the great wide world. At the same time, someone from the 3 Yin realms also stood out. He called himself Lord Yin and deliberately challenged Lord Yang. I don't care who is in charge of the great thousand world now. Since we are here today, then there are some things that you should hand over. Master Yin was very rude, but he did not say what he wanted the great thousand world to hand over. At this moment, several ancestors of the Red Spider Lily tribe also came out. In front of everyone, they directly announced that they had defected to the 3 realms of Yang. The most unbelievable thing was that the entire evil race tribe also defected to the 3 Yin realms on the same day. Oh, I should have known. The evil race is not a good thing. Jiang Qin sighed. Some clues could be seen from the evil race's body. They originally belonged to the Yin. Perhaps they were part of the tribes left behind by the 3 Yin realms in the great thousand world. Now that they had returned, it was understandable. But the evil race is really good to you. Although they borrowed your blood, at least they did not harm you. Rotten said, yes, the evil race was originally the living beings of the 3 Yin realms. Now they are not considered to have betrayed the great thousand world, but this Red Spider Lily tribe. Jiang Qin's face was gloomy. He secretly thought that sooner or later, he would deal with the Red Spider Lily tribe. What 3 Yin realms? In this great thousand world, we the 9 Supremes are still here. The forbidden land of 9 Supremes is here. What are you? On the same day, the 9 ancient spirits said directly, their words full of arrogance and unruliness. They had the strength and confidence to do so. Even on the same day, an ancient spirit walked out of the forbidden land of 9 supremes and ascended to the extreme in front of the world. A grand and terrifying aura erupted and swept through every corner of the great thousand world. He was intimidating the people of the 3 realms. If you're not Ludixian, what are you? Lord Ian immediately said and sneered from an endless distance. You are just at the end of the road. I am not afraid of you. If you are not Ludixian, what are you? Then what are you? The ancient spirit joked. Don't scold yourself. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, a thunderous explosion resounded throughout the entire great wide world. Many people saw that a golden fist came out of the forbidden land of 9 supremes and directly hit Lord Yin's body. Lord Yin was very strong. With a flick of his finger, a mysterious light burst out and shook the fist back. You want to start a war? Lord Yin's face was gloomy. He could not believe that a mere great thousand world dared to take the initiative to attack them. From the moment you stepped into the great thousand world, the war has already begun. In this life, there is no invincible person in the great thousand world, no Ludixian, and no man from back then. In this life, the 9 supremes will protect you. On this day, the 9 ancient spirits were very domineering and full of fighting spirit. Even Jiang Chun was a little moved. In the end, the 9 ancient spirits were still people of the great thousand world. In this life, the great thousand world is too weak. The Rotten One sighed and said, I'm afraid it will be difficult to stop the 9 ancient spirits. Them? They're just troublemakers. If they really want to risk their lives, let's see if they dare to do so, Jiang Chun said in a bad mood. Jiang Chun knew very well what the 9 ancient spirits were thinking. First, they would do something in the great thousand world, then secretly go to the 3 realms to become immortals. As for whether the great thousand world was destroyed or not, they really did not care. Even if their own descendants died, they could not care less. At most, after becoming immortals, they could reproduce in the immortal world. As far as I know, the great thousand world is not the forbidden land of 9 supremes, but a place called the ancestral court. Lord Yang said meaningfully, What's wrong? We have arrived. Why don't the people of the ancestral court dare to come out? Are they afraid? With such strength, they dare to call themselves the ancestral court? I think the great thousand world is blind to have passed down the great thousand world's fate to you. Lord Yin mocked. Chapter 1392. Facing the mockery of the Yin and Yang realms, the people of ancestral court did not say a word. Jiang Chun had already informed them that they had to endure it. It was not the time for them to make a move yet. Moreover, the people of the Yin and Yang realms had entered the great wide world not to target the great wide world, but to start a war. Jiang Chun had thought it through very clearly. He would let the 9 ancient spirits block them first and watch the battle of the Yin and Yang realms. He would wait until the ancestral court was almost done before making a move. Otherwise, with the current strength of the ancestral court, if they made a move now, they would undoubtedly be courting death. Cowards! The great wide world is only SOSO. These 9 old things have some courage to challenge us. The people of the Yin and Yang realms were still mocking them and did not forget to bring the 9 ancient spirits along. Regarding this, the 9 ancient spirits also fell silent. After all, they were not fools. They knew that Jiang Chun was using them as spears. Just like that, when the 9 saints' forbidden land and ancestral court chose to remain silent, the people of the Yin and Yang realms felt a little bored. Lord Yin, I haven't seen you for several eras, but you're still the same. I wonder if your strength has improved. Finally, Lord Yang spoke first. He took a step forward and crossed hundreds of millions of miles, instantly appearing in front of the people of the Yin realms. There's no need to talk nonsense. Fight! Lord Yin was very domineering. He and Lord Yang were sworn enemies, which could be seen from their names. At this moment, the two of them directly started fighting. They did not even set up a domain, and did not care about the great wide world at all. One had to know that under normal circumstances, top experts would set up a domain when they fought to prevent the fluctuations of the battle from destroying the world. However, to the people of the yin and yang realms, the great wide world was nothing at all. Even if it was destroyed, they did not care. Boom! With an explosive sound, the two of them immediately fought. Divine light scattered down, and tens of thousands of laws fell. From afar, this place seemed to have turned into a furnace. The laws collided, and the laws were burning. Kill. Uphold the name of the yin and yang realms. At this moment, the other people of the yin and yang realms also attacked. There was nothing to say. They were here to start a war, so there was no need to wait. Boom! Boom! Along with the sounds of explosions, the three dimensions of yin and yang had finally begun their war. Zhang Chen and the others stood in the ancestral court, watching the battle from afar with solemn expressions. "They're far stronger than we thought," Zhang Chen said in a low voice. "They're all at the level of Roadbreaker, but the one from the yin-yang three realms is much stronger. The Tao of heaven and earth is different. The great thousand world has entered the age of chaos since prehistoric times. It is not easy for us to cultivate to this level. The Taos of the three realms of yin and yang are flourishing and brilliant. Their overall strength is naturally above that of the greater thousand worlds." Many people spoke out. After seeing the battle in the three realms of yin and yang, none of them were confident. At the same time, some people also asked why the great thousand world had entered the age of chaos. I don't know the exact reason, but it seems to be man-made. Rumor has it that there was a prehistoric person who used the Tao of the greater thousand world to suppress the opportunity to become an immortal in the three realms of yin and yang. Perhaps this is the reason why the greater thousand world entered the age of chaos. The Rotten Man and the others had lived since prehistoric times and naturally knew some secrets. However, this was all speculation. No one knew why the greater thousand world had entered the age of chaos. Should we make a move? If we just watch and don't make a move, Jiang Chun will definitely not light the eternal lamp for us. In the forbidden land of 9 saints, the 9 ancient spirits sat together and discussed. They did not care about the greater thousand world at all. They only cared about becoming immortals. However, the eternal lamp was not in their hands, and it was not lit. As a result, they could not enter the three realms of yin and yang. Let's wait until they are half dead before we make a move. Just like that, the people of the three realms of yin and yang were still fighting fiercely. They ignored the ancestral court and the forbidden land of 9 saints. After all, in their eyes, even if the ancestral court and the 9 ancient spirits made a move, they could not do anything to them. One had to know that the people sent by the three realms of yin and yang were all powerhouses at the end of the road. Is it Nyenchanga? Suddenly, Jiang Lu's expression froze. He saw an acquaintance among the powerhouses of the three realms of yin and yang. In fact, Jiang Chun had already seen him. After all, his relationship with Nyenchanga was not ordinary. How could he ignore him? At this moment, Nyenchanga did not make a move. He stood behind, accompanied by the evil King Bell. As if sensing the gaze of Jiang Chun and others, Nyenchanga grinned in the direction of the ancestral court. "Hurry up and go back to cultivate. What are you looking at?" Jiang Chun said angrily. Jiang Lu looked embarrassed. When he turned around, he could not help but mutter, "Why is Nyenchanga on the side of the three realms of yin and yang? Isn't he one of us?" "Don't ask so much. He naturally has his reasons for doing so." Jiang Chun said, "Hey, when are you going to light the eternal lamp?" At this moment, an ancient spirit came to the ancestral court and asked bluntly, "You haven't done anything yet, and you want me to light the eternal lamp?" Jiang Chun said angrily, "There are 9 of you. At least kill one each, right?" "What?" The ancient spirit frowned and said, "What do you think the cultivators at the end of the road are? Kill them as you wish. Didn't you claim to be very strong? Is it difficult to kill one by one?" Jiang Chun joked, "What? You're not lying, are you?" As soon as these words came out, The ancient spirit's face immediately darkened. The 9 ancient spirits were real people who had passed the immortal ascension tribulation. In prehistoric times, the 9 of them were also giants of a region. Now, they were actually looked down upon by Jiangchen. How could they put down their face? It's a deal then. You'll light the everlasting lamp when we've killed 9 of them. The ancient spirit gave Jiangchen a stare and then left. Half a day later, the people of the 3 realms of Yin and Yang were still fighting. The battle fluctuations had already spread throughout the entire Great Thousand World. Some worlds collapsed, and some worlds turned into nothingness. Countless creatures were killed and injured. So many creatures died. On this day, the 9 ancient spirits quietly left the forbidden land of 9 saints. They went to the destroyed worlds and absorbed the remaining essence of those creatures after they died. At the same time, not far from the battlefield, the void cracked open, and then 2 figures, one black and one white, quietly appeared there. Although these 2 creatures were very quiet and did not emit any fluctuations, the people of the 3 realms of Yin and Yang saw them immediately. Black and white impermanence. This thing really exists. At this moment, someone rushed toward the 2 creatures and punched out, shouting angrily, "Go back! This is the world of the living. When people die, they have to go to the afterlife. We are here to prepare for your afterlife." The black creature's voice was very hoarse. At the same time, with a wave of his hand, a black jade seal hung above his head. Chapter 1393. A black imperial jade seal floated in the void, blocking the myriad Tao laws outside. Even the attack of that person was blocked. At this moment, the people from the Yin-Yang realm looked serious, and the battle stopped. The ancient underworld's reach is really long. It's said that the ancient underworld has the black and white impermanence, and they often capture the souls of Pathbreaker level powerhouses. It seems like the rumors are true. The people from the Yin-Yang realm had ugly expressions. It was rumored that once a person died and their soul fell into the hands of the ancient underworld, there was no hope for reincarnation. It was also rumored that the ancient underworld suppressed the souls of the Pathbreaker level powerhouses and turned them into another kind of life form in the ancient underworld. They would serve the ancient underworld for eternity, and they would never be reincarnated. In short, anyone who knew some of the secrets of the ancient hell would not want to have anything to do with the ancient hell. They would rather die and have their souls destroyed than allow their souls to enter the ancient hell. Everyone, you're overthinking it. The order of reincarnation in this world is controlled by the ancient underworld. We're here to receive you, White Impermanence said. Everyone, you can continue fighting. We won't interfere. At this, the people from the Yin-Yang realm had ugly expressions. How are we supposed to fight with you 2 malefactors here? Although both sides were determined to die in this battle, everyone wanted to die a little more comfortably. If he was really killed, he wouldn't be able to die, but his soul would be imprisoned. That would be terrible. Everyone, why don't we deal with these 2 first? I think so. The ancient underworld's reach is too long. It's one thing for you to control the greater 1,000 realms, but you want to interfere with the affairs of the Yin-Yang realm? At this moment, the group of Pathbreaker level powerhouses from the Yin-Yang realm roared and charged. In an instant, the place exploded, and the Tao became chaotic. Even the order of the world was colliding. Those who didn't know would think that this was a new world. It's useless. Our Lord has already comprehended the strongest order and imprinted it in the Ghost Seal. As long as the Ghost Seal is still here, you can't hurt us. Black Impermanence said softly. Looking at the attacks coming down from the sky, he and White Impermanence were unmoved. Boom! Boom! Explosions rang out continuously. Under the attacks that filled the sky, the Ghost Seal flickered with divine light. Streams of obscure power of order poured down and enveloped the black and white impermanence like a waterfall. The attacks that filled the sky were unable to break through this waterfall-like power of order, much less injure the black and white impermanence. At the same time, The ghost seal seemed to have sensed the attack and shook slightly. Then, a bloody eye appeared on the ghost seal. "Don't be so shameless." After the eye appeared, it only said a few words, but it intimidated everyone in the three realms of yin and yang. At this moment, everyone stared at the blood-red eyes. Even the experts at the end of the road felt chills down their spines, and their bodies trembled slightly. They knew who the owner of those eyes was. It was definitely the legendary master of the ancient hell. Legend had it that the ancient hell had only had a single master ever since its establishment. That person was very mysterious and would never appear in front of the world. Even his appearance was a mystery. However, it was said that as long as his ghost seal appeared, no one in this world would dare to resist. Now, not only had the ghost seal appeared, but it had also manifested an eye. Obviously, he was trying to intimidate the people of the three realms of yin and yang. The ancient hell originated from the greater thousand realms and can be considered a part of it. Now that you have destroyed the greater thousand realms, what's wrong with the ancient hell coming to collect your souls? Can I? The master of the ancient hell said in a deep voice. When the blood-red eyes opened and closed, it was as if there were endless ghosts roaring. This scene was too terrifying. It was as if the infernal purgatory had appeared in the mortal realm, intimidating everyone. Even the 9 great ancient spirits in the distance were shocked. That guy's still alive. Especially when they saw the power of order from the ghost seal, they understood that the master of this world had never changed. It had always been him, the master of the ancient hell. If the ancient hell wasn't looking for another world and didn't have time to care about us, we would have died long ago, right? How terrifying. That guy from the ancient hell, has he become an immortal? The 9 great ancient spirits were pale. After all, they had wreaked havoc in the greater thousand realms for several eras. Legend has it that the ancient hell has been destroyed long ago, but now it has appeared again. Even the 2 strongest black and white impermanents of the ancient hell are here. One of the ancient spirits muttered. Then, do you think that the ancient heavenly court that has been confirmed to be destroyed will suddenly jump out? Don't make wild guesses. I'm panicking to death. Both the ancient heavenly court and the ancient hell have appeared. This is nothing. I'm just afraid that man will jump out as well. Another ancient spirit muttered. Suddenly, he looked in the direction of the ancestral court and said, "Do you think it's him? 10 reincarnations? 10 reincarnations?" One of the ancient spirits frowned and said, "The ancient hell is still here. Then his 10 reincarnations. I'm afraid it's interfered with. He might not be able to return." But, just as the ancient spirits were about to continue speaking, the blood-red eyes suddenly looked at them and said coldly, "The secrets of the great Tao are not something you can figure out." As soon as he finished speaking, the power of law suddenly erupted from the ghost seal like a rainbow and directly blasted toward the 9 saints' forbidden land. Damn it! This guy, is he really not afraid of the 9 of us joining forces? The 9 ancient spirits were shocked and hurriedly joined forces to block the attack of the law. Then, the 9 ancient spirits directly left this place and entered the ancestral court tacitly. They had come with a purpose. If that man could really return in this life, then the master of the ancient hell would definitely not dare to attack the ancestral court, especially Jiang Chun. They came here to see the attitude of the ancient hell. "It seems that you know a lot," the master of the ancient hell said in a deep voice. "Many things will happen in this life. The opportunity to become an immortal in the 3 realms of yin and yang will also be solved. The path to immortality in the upper-class world will also be connected, and the other world that the ancient hell is looking for will not appear. Everything has already been decided." Then, the blood-red eyes turned and looked at the people of the 3 realms of yin and yang and said, "It's meaningless to continue fighting, but if you insist on fighting, I won't interfere. However, your souls will definitely belong to the ancient hell." Who are you trying to scare? There are land immortals in the 3 realms of yin and yang. There are also land immortals in the 3 realms of yin. And don't think that we're fools. Your main body is not here. Did something happen? Do you think that a single eye of the ghost seal can intimidate us? What a joke! Chapter 1394. Although the ancient underworld was powerful, the master of the ancient underworld was even more mysterious. However, those present were not ordinary people. Each of them was the strongest at the end of the broken road. They were the overlords of their respective worlds. In this world, they thought that the only thing that could make them submit was a land deity. So what if the master of the ancient underworld was Ludixian? He did not come. Only the black and white impermanence, the ghost seal, and an eye came. Did he think that would be enough to intimidate them? I'm just here to persuade you. The master of the ancient underworld's attitude softened a lot. This also made everyone more certain that there was a big problem with the ancient underworld. Persuade? What right do you have to persuade us? Today, even if the ancient underworld has two land deities, it won't work. This is a matter of the three realms of yin and yang. It has nothing to do with you. The people of the three realms of yin and yang were very tough. Although they had stopped fighting, it was only temporary. Moreover, they were very arrogant and thought that the three realms of yin and yang were above the greater world. How could people from other worlds interfere with their affairs? Then you can continue. If you die in battle, your souls will still belong to the ancient underworld. The master of the ancient underworld said. Then the eye disappeared, but the ghost seal was still there. The black and white impermanence also stood in place expressionlessly. They were not afraid of the group of powerhouses from the three realms of yin and yang at all. You can continue to fight. No matter how many worlds you have destroyed, the greater world will pay you back double. You will pay the price for this. The nine ancient spirits also spoke. Although they did not have any feelings for the greater world and only wanted to become deities, in the end, they were still living beings of the greater world. When the battle is over, we will deal with you nine old things. Boom! At this moment, the battle began again. The people of the three realms of yin and yang continued to fight. Kid, we can't continue fighting like this. The greater world will be completely destroyed. One of the ancient spirits said, "Why don't you light the lamp now and open the passage? We will go to the three realms of yang." Yes, as long as we go to the three realms of yang, we can use the three realms of yang to threaten them. By then, they won't dare to fight in the greater world. The nine ancient spirits looked at Jiang Chun, their eyes sparkling with anticipation. In response, Jiang Chun nodded. He felt that it was time to light up the lamp. If the people of the three realms of yin and yang were to continue fighting in the Great Thousand World, the entire Great Thousand World would be destroyed. I know you don't care about the Great Thousand Realms, but I hope that after you go to the Yang Three Realms, you can make some contributions to the Great Thousand Realms. Just treat it as doing your family a favor. Jiang Chen sighed. We will naturally do what we can. Don't worry. We won't be able to become immortals in a short time after going to the Yang Three Realms. When the time comes, we'll definitely help the Great Thousand World. The nine ancient spirits agreed one after another. Moreover, as soon as they finished speaking, the nine of them moved at the same time, reaching into the void. Across countless distances, the palm captured 9 people from a certain place in the world. These 9 people were all young, and their cultivation levels were extremely high. Their talent was extraordinary, and when they appeared before the crowd, their eyes lit up. These are the descendants of the 9 of us. Although we have several descendants, these 9 people are our proudest descendants. If you can take good care of them, when we become immortals, we will definitely come back to deal with this group of bastards from the 3 realms of yin and yang. Obviously, in order to reassure Jiang Chun, the 9 ancient spirits had brought their strongest descendants. They were considered hostages. Of course, on the surface, the words had to be said nicely. Otherwise, Jiang Chun would not have agreed. How can I not know what you were thinking? Jiang Chun said snappily. He waved his hand and said, "All right, I will take care of them." After saying that, Jiang Chun finally took out the lamp. If this lamp is lit, I'm afraid the consequences will be very serious, right? The 8 ancestors frowned and said, The experts of the three realms of Yang who have come to the great thousand world now should not be all of them. If the lamp is lit, I'm afraid the experts of the three realms of Yang will come together. Isn't that a good thing? Zhang Chen said. If all the experts of the three realms of Yang descend and destroy the experts of the three realms of Yin, this battle will be over. But what if something unexpected happens? The Rotten said in a low voice. In the eyes of the three realms of Yin and Yang, the great thousand world is a shackle that binds their opportunity to become immortals. If they cannot break this shackle, it is very likely that they will destroy the great thousand world. Is there any other way? Jiang Qin smiled wryly. The great thousand world had been unified, and all the break-level experts were in the ancestral court, which was extremely powerful. However, when he saw the strength of the three realms of Yin and Yang, Jiang Qin felt even more helpless. Actually, perhaps there is another possibility. An old man who had lived for several eras suddenly spoke up. He was also a powerhouse at the end of the break level. Although he was not as famous as the Rotten back then, he was not bad either. He knew some secrets and told Jiang Qin and the others that when the three realms of Yin and Yang attacked the Great Thousand World last time, a group of experts from the Great Thousand World appeared. They used a secret technique and transferred most of the experts of the three realms of Yin and Yang to an unknown space-time. Both sides were lost. Some people said that the eternal lamp was a signpost that guided those experts back. You mean if the eternal lamp is lit, it is possible for the experts of the three realms of Yang to descend, and it is also possible for the experts of the Great Thousand World to find their way back. Jiang Qin was moved. Perhaps, but it is a rumor after all. The man shook his head and said, "But now, we can only try." Jiang Qin nodded. There was nothing more to say at this point. In the end, Jiang Qin used a strand of divine power to light the eternal lamp. Instantly, a flame shot up into the sky and disappeared into the endless void. After a few breaths, a void passage appeared. At the end of the passage was a vast world. The yang qi there was extremely heavy. Even from an endless distance, one could feel it. The eternal light passage. Who is it who lit up the eternal light passage? Do you want to die? At this moment, the people of the three realms of Yin were furious. They knew about the eternal lamp, but it had disappeared for a long time. Everyone thought that it was destroyed. Unexpectedly, the eternal lamp appeared in this life and opened the eternal light passage, connecting the great thousand world and the three realms of Yang together. Who lit up the eternal lamp? Thank you. God is helping the three realms of Yang. Yang Zun and the others were very excited. They were only a part of the experts of the three realms of Yang. There was still a large number of people who could not come. But now, with the eternal light passage, the experts of the three realms of Yang could all descend into the great thousand world. Chapter 1395. The people of the three Yin realms were furious. They cursed and retreated. They were worried that all the masters of the three Yang realms would come and destroy them. The stronger the Great Path laws are, the harder it is to cross the realm wall. Only by opening a special passage can they come. For the sake of opening the passage to the Great Thousand World, we can give the Great Thousand World a chance to survive. The people of the three Yang realms seemed to be friendly and reasonable. Their voices were so loud that they spread to every corner of the Great Thousand World. However, the creatures of the Great Thousand World didn't thank them. After all, if it weren't for the three Yang realms, the Great Thousand World wouldn't have been destroyed like this. They're here. Half a day later, on the other side of the passage, figures appeared one after another. They were like giants standing between heaven and earth. They were above the Great Path laws. They stepped on the passage, surrounded by the Great Path Chi. Even the laws had turned into sharp blades that circled around them. Obviously, these people were in charge of killing. The Tao they comprehended and cultivated were all about killing. This aura. Something's not right. At this moment, the people of the three Yang realms widened their eyes in horror. They could sense the aura on the other side of the passage. The aura of those creatures didn't belong to the three Yang realms. Oh, guardians of the great thousand world. Huh? Yang realms, your plan has failed. At this moment, the people of the three Yin realms laughed wildly. They recognized the group of people at a glance. They were the masters of the Great Thousand World who were expelled from the Great Thousand World in the last war between the three Yang realms. At that time, the people of the Great Thousand World used a secret technique to banish most of the people of the three Yang realms to an unknown time and space. Now, it was the guardians of the Greater Thousand World who had returned first after the eternal lamp had been lit. Damn it! Retreat! Yang Zun and the others looked terrible. They came to an undamaged world and sealed it, turning it into a forbidden area. They knew how powerful the guardians of the Great Thousand World were. They couldn't stop them with just a few of them. Now, they could only hide and wait for the other masters of the three Yang realms to come out. After countless eras, we're finally home. This world is broken. It's hard to calm down with anger. After another half a day, hoarse voices rang out from the longevity light passage. Then, the first person appeared. He was wearing tattered armor, and the sword in his hand was broken and worn beyond recognition. His hair was stained with blood, but it did not dry up. You bastards of the three realms of Yin and Yang. Several eras have passed, and you're still building your battlefield in the Great Thousand Realms? You guys can really do it. The man's face was grim, and the sword in his hand hummed. When his eyes opened and closed, the sun and moon seemed to be spinning in reverse, as well as a sea of blood. Back then, you suffered a loss. I didn't expect that you would dare to come to the great wide world this time. I think you're courting death. This time, I'll kill you first. It's our turn to counterattack. After a few breaths, figures appeared one after another, each of them surrounded by a murderous aura. A dozen breaths later, more than 30 people walked out of the tunnel. Without saying a word, they charged toward Yang Zun and the others. It's over. Yang Zun and the others were completely disheartened when they witnessed this scene. They were very clearly aware that this forbidden area was utterly incapable of stopping the enemy. Now that they had charged over, Yang Zun and the others would definitely die. Don't hurt us. We're just people from the lower realm of the three realms of Yin and Yang. If you kill us, believe it or not, when the people from the Yang middle realm and Yang upper realm arrive, they'll completely destroy the Great Thousand Realms. Yang Zun and the others roared. They were not only threatening, but also asking for hope for their own survival. However, for these guardians of the Great Thousand Realms, the threat did not exist at all. Since they had dared to attack in the last battle, they would still dare to attack this time. Kill! A bunch of bastards! Next, there were continuous explosions, and the shockwaves of the battle spread out, destroying several worlds nearby. Even the Guardians could not control such a battle. Once the battle began, how could they care about the safety of the other worlds in the Great Thousand Realms? We can't go on like this. If Yang Zun and the others are killed, we'll be the next ones to be killed. We have to help them. A day later, before the battle ended, the people from the three realms of Yin were anxious. They knew very well the consequences of Yang Zun and the others dying in battle. At this moment, Yang Zun rushed over with the people of the three realms of Yin and Yang. The experts of the three realms of Yin and Yang joined forces to resist the guardians of the Great Thousand Realms. Go, and support them. Jiang Chun narrowed his eyes. Now that things had come to this, the ancestral court could no longer continue to watch. Since the people of the three realms of Yin and Yang had joined forces, the ancestral court naturally had to attack. Otherwise, when the guardians were killed, the Great Thousand Realms would really be destroyed. Let's go. At this moment, the experts of the ancestral court all moved out and rushed into the battlefield in a few breaths of time. So weak. The Great Thousand Realms of this era are really weak. However, as soon as they joined the battle, the group of guardians of the Great Thousand Realms spoke, and the disdain in their words was not concealed at all. This made Jiang Chun and the others very embarrassed, especially Jiang Chun and Wakako. They relied on their great Tao providence to fight against the experts of the great thousand realms of yin and yang. Their true cultivation was really too low. Fortunately, the guardians were very strong, and the 8 patriarchs of the ancestral court were not weak either. Each of them was a supreme expert who had lived for several eras. With the addition of Jiang Chun and the others, the situation of the battle changed obviously. The guardians began to suppress the people of the 3 realms of yin and yang. However, it was too difficult to kill them. It would take a long time. The passage has been open for so long. Why haven't the experts of the 3 realms of yin and yang arrived yet? Did something happen? A day later, the battle continued. Many people of the 3 realms of yin and yang had died. The souls of these people were taken away by the black and white impermanence and returned to the ancient netherworld. What's that? Suddenly, someone saw a shocking scene. In the passage, 9 figures came side by side and blocked the passage. Who said that there's no one in the great thousand realms? Our 9 ancient spirits are here. Humph! You destroyed our great thousand realms. Today, we will kill our way into the 3 realms of yin and yang. The moment we step into the 3 realms of yin and yang, a sea of blood is destined to appear. The 9 ancient spirits had their backs to everyone, and it seemed to be true. However, the corner of Jiang Chen's mouth twitched, and he shouted angrily, "Hurry up! They destroyed 1 realm of our great thousand realms, so you will destroy 10 of their realms." Chapter 1396. The 9 ancient spirits blocked the passage. They had been harming the great thousand world since prehistoric times. Now they had done something for the great thousand world. Of course, Jiang Chun and the 9 ancient spirits knew that these 9 guys were not so kind. They just wanted to become immortals. Who dares to stop me? At this moment, someone finally came from the other side of the passage. This time, it was indeed an expert from the Yang 3 realms who had come. What the hell? What are you so arrogant for? Just one? The 9 ancient spirits were not good people. When they saw that there was only one person, they sneered. As soon as they finished speaking, the 9 of them rushed out and stopped the person in the middle of the passage. What happened next was very simple. There was no suspense. Under the joint forces of the 9 ancient spirits, the expert at the end of the broken road would die. In just a dozen breaths of time, a rain of blood fell from the sky. The heavens whale phenomenon appeared, and the expert from the Yang realm was killed before he could even step out of the passage. We, the 9 ancient spirits, are the heavens of this great thousand world. How dare you behave atrociously in my great thousand world? The 9 ancient spirits were in high spirits. When the 9 of them joined forces, no one in the world was their match. Even the invincible warrior back then couldn't do anything to the combined power of the 9 ancient spirits. Jiang Chun, you brat, thank you for opening the passage. We won't pretend to be nice to you. We're going to the Yang realm. Jiang Chun, you bastard, you used us as tools. Now we won't beg you. At this moment, the 9 ancient spirits turned around and looked at Jiang Chun, who was fighting fiercely. They mocked him and even called him Jiang Chun, you brat. It was obvious how much they hated Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun smiled bitterly. He knew that these 9 guys were not good people. Get lost. Go and bring disaster to the 3 realms of Yang. Jiang Chun cursed. If you go there, don't come back. Even if you die, die in the Yang realm. We'll definitely become immortals this time. From prehistoric times until now, we've always been invincible. The 9 great ancient spirits were quite confident, but they did have the basis for their confidence. There were so many prehistoric eras, and they were born in different eras. Each of them was the main character of their own era. Now, with the 9 of them working together, even Yang 3 realms would have a headache. How arrogant! How dare you claim to be invincible in front of me? At this moment, another person came from the end of the tunnel. However, as soon as the person entered the passage and saw the 9 ancient spirits, he shuddered and immediately retreated. This was because he had seen the 9 great ancient spirits before and knew the strength of the 9 great ancient spirits. They were not to be trifled with. Did you see that? Even the experts of your Yang 3 realms have to retreat when they see us. What Yang 3 realms? Destroy them. The 9 ancient spirits were very arrogant, but they stood in the passageway and didn't continue forward. Although they were arrogant and confident, they were not fools. The opening of the long light passage meant that the other end of the passage was bound to be filled with experts from the 3 realms of the Yang. The 3 realms of the Yang 3 realms were divided into upper, middle, and lower realms. Yang Zun and the others came from the lower realms, and they were the weakest group of experts in the 3 realms of the Yang 3 realms. The 9 great ancient spirits were naturally not afraid of this group of people. However, the key was that the other end of the passage would definitely be experts from the Yang middle realm and the Yang upper realm. The 9 great ancient spirits were not afraid of the experts from the Yang middle realm, but the legendary experts from the Yang upper realm made the 9 great ancient spirits somewhat fearful. Therefore, they were waiting for an opportunity to make the experts of the 3 realms of the Yang 3 realms unable to take care of them. Kill. At this moment, Jiang Chun was leading a group of experts from the ancestral court in a bloody battle. The battle was extremely intense, especially Jiang Chun and Wakako. They were the focus of the people from the 3 realms of the Yang 3 realms. Their cultivation was too low, and in the eyes of the people from the 3 realms of the Yang 3 realms, they were soft persimmons. In a short period of time, Jiang Chun was already injured, especially the top of his head, which was almost torn apart by the Yang upper realm. This was the difference in realms. Even if Jiang Chun had the fate of the Great Tao, it was still difficult for him to contend against an expert like the Yang upper realm. As for Wakako, it was even worse. His body was destroyed by the Yin upper realm several times. If not for the help of the Guardians, Wakako would have already died in battle. Even so, Wakako continuously rebuilt his body, and there was no trace of fear in his eyes. Born in the 6 realms, as a person of the great 1,000 realms, we cultivators do not fear a battle. Wakako roared. His entire body was trembling. 10,000 Tao scattered down like divine light, and the laws were like the roar of a true dragon as they entered his body. He was going to break through and step into the transcendent realm. So what if you step into the transcendent realm? We are all at the breaking realm, and we are all at the end. The Yin upper realm's expression was cold. He stretched out his palm, wanting to stop Wakako from breaking through. Trash from the Yin upper realm. You want to kill people in front of me? A guardian covered in runes roared and swept out his palm. A few stars nearby were caught in his palm, and then he sent the Yin upper realm flying. The Yin upper realm was shocked. He had the highest status in this group, but now he was afraid and hid behind the people of the 3 realms. He did not dare to attack again, because he knew how terrifying these guardians were. If not for the fact that they had been exiled in an unknown space for too long, and their essence, chi, and spirit are not at their peak, or else even the experts of the Yin upper realm would not be able to do anything to them. The Yin upper realm's heart was cold. He looked back at Nyan Changa and said in a low voice, "What are you waiting for? Open the passage." Master did not give the order. Nyan Changa said calmly, "I am only responsible for bringing you into the great 1,000 realms, not the other people of the 3 realms." "What? Are you trying to trick us? Nyan Changa, are you playing with us?" At this moment, the people of the 3 realms felt that something was wrong. If the experts of the 3 realms did not come, they would die in the great 1,000 realms sooner or later. "You can't blame me," Nyan Changa said with a faint smile. "I only listen to Master, but Master seems to be resting and did not pay attention to me, so I can't open the passage." Nyan Changa then looked at the evil spirit King Bell and said, "Why don't you go back to the 6 realms and ask your master?" "It's so far. I don't want to go." The evil spirit King Bell shook his head and said, "Master has his own plans." The moment these words came out, everyone's expression involuntarily changed. Even Jiang Chun was shocked. Wasn't Nyan Changa's master Taoist Tantian? Wasn't he the Demon Emperor? The evil spirit King Bell called the Demon Emperor his master. Could it be this guy was the Demon Emperor's weapon? Good trick. How dare you trick the three realms? Master Yin was furious. He turned around and attacked Nian Changa. Nian Changa pointed at Venerable Yin, who was dashing over. Then she looked towards the evil spirit Wang Zhong. She said sarcastically, "He thinks I'm Jiang Chun. He thinks I haven't come back. He really underestimated me." Chapter 1397. Master Yin was furious. He knew that Nian Changa had tricked three Yin realms. They had entered the great thousand world to die. But before he died, he wanted to drag someone down with him. Unfortunately, he did not know that Nian Changa was different from Jiang Chun. Although they had both reincarnated, Nian Changa had returned. At this moment, 72 lotuses bloomed above Nian Changa's head. Tens of thousands of laws fell, and the 72 kinds of supernatural powers had almost merged. A ray of mysterious light shot out and struck Lord Yin's body like the primal chaos. Boom! Along with an explosion, Lord Yin's body exploded, and even his soul was almost obliterated. Nian Changa, three Yin realms will not let you go. Master Yin roared. His body was reconstructed, and he fled into the distance. How can the great thousand world let three Yin realms go? Nian Changa said softly. With a wave of his hand, the world seemed to be imprisoned, and Master Yin's figure stopped abruptly. Then, the evil spirit King Bell attacked. A ghost-like substance burst out and wrapped around Master Yin's body. Then, the bell shone and swallowed Master Yin. I'm full. The evil spirit King Bell burped, frowned, and said, "The taste is not good. The Yin Qi is too strong. It's good enough that you can eat." Nian Changa laughed, but then his face turned gloomy. This was because after Master Yin died, he was swallowed by the evil spirit King Bell. Even his soul was not spat out. This made the black and white impermanents very angry. After Master Yin died, his soul should have returned to the ancient underworld. Hand it over. At this moment, the black and white impermanents walked over. Their expressions were solemn, and their eyes flashed coldly. Their tone was more like an order to Nian Changa and the evil spirit King Bell. "How can you spit out what you ate?" The evil spirit King Bell was not afraid at all. He looked at the black and white impermanents and said, "When I ran rampant in the world, you weren't even born yet. Just a few juniors. How dare you be arrogant in front of me? We represent the ancient underworld," the black and white impermanence said coldly. As soon as these words were spoken, the ghoul King Bell was stunned, and then he roared with laughter. He pointed at Nian Changa and said, "All of you represent the ancient netherworld? Then do you know what he represents?" "What?" White impermanence was also a bit confused. He looked at Nian Changa, and after a few breaths of time, his expression suddenly changed. He grabbed black impermanence and quickly retreated. "What are you afraid of? Aren't you supposed to be representing the ancient underworld?" The ghoul King Clock taunted. "What's wrong?" Black impermanence also reacted. He stared blankly at Nian Changa and stuttered. "If the ancient netherworld isn't destroyed, will my ancient celestial court be destroyed?" Nian Changa raised her eyebrows and said, "Today, even if that old thing Guzhen comes, it won't be easy." Wang. As soon as he finished speaking, a large shadow appeared behind Nian Changa. Upon closer inspection, one could see that they were palaces with streaks of immortal energy. There were also countless heavenly soldiers and generals standing there. Right above the shadow, there was a large flag with the words "Celestial Court" written on it. The most shocking thing was that in the middle of the shadow, there was a person who looked exactly like Nian Changa. This is the scene of the ancient celestial court in the past. He is the court master of the ancient celestial court. At this moment, not only the black and white impermanents, but even the guardians of the Yin-Yang realm and the great thousand world were shocked. The ancient celestial court that was rumored to have been destroyed was actually still there. Moreover, the court master of the ancient celestial court appeared in front of them alive. "What the?" Nian Changa. Are you really the court master of the ancient celestial court? Jiang Chen was also dumbfounded. Back then, Jiang Chen had destroyed the ancient celestial court, and the few elders of the ancient celestial court were so scared that they trembled. But now, Nian Chang'e was the court master of the ancient celestial court. This was a little awkward. It's okay. The current ancient celestial court has little to do with my ancient celestial court. Nian Chang'e smiled and said, How is it? Are you surprised? I'm offended, Jiang Chen said with a wry smile. He really didn't expect Nian Chang'e's true identity to be so extraordinary. Then, as the master of the ancient celestial court's court master, Taoist Heavenspan's demon emperor, what was his identity? That old guy, his background was really terrifying. He probably wasn't just the lord of the demon realm. Since prehistoric times, the yin-yang realm has repeatedly set up their battlefields in the Great Thousand World. Do you really think the Great Thousand World is easy to bully? After plotting for several eras, it's time to settle old scores with you in this life. Nian Chang'e looked at the experts of the yin-yang realm and waved his hand. A huge flag with the words Celestial Court engraved on it appeared. Then he waved the flag, and the great Tao of heaven and earth rolled with it. In the endless distance, there was a roar. Beams of light shot into the sky, as if tearing the world apart. Then, a large number of buildings appeared between heaven and earth. That was the true mountain gate of the ancient celestial court. At this moment, in front of the gate of the ancient celestial court, there were thousands of extraordinaries standing tall, and a dozen or so breakers standing between heaven and earth. The ancient celestial court's foundation isn't very deep, but it should be enough to deal with trash like you. Nian Chang'e said softly, waving his hand. Kill! Kill! With the celestial court here, the great thousand world will be safe. At this moment, the people of the ancient celestial court rushed over and drowned the people of the yin-yang realm in the blink of an eye. Coupled with the attacks of the guardians, in the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the people of the yin-yang realm were all killed. Couldn't you have done something earlier? You almost killed me. At this moment, half of Wakako's body had been smashed, and his soul had dimmed. He really had almost died. He stared at Nian Chang'e with great dissatisfaction, thinking that this guy was really a dog. Aren't I making preparations? Nian Chang'e said with a smile. You're still alive, aren't you? Don't mind me. Even if I'm not dead, I'm almost dead. Wakako's face darkened, and then his eyes turned black, and he fainted on the spot. After all, the power of the great Tao's providence was too strong. Jiang Chen was also on the verge of collapse. After grinning at Nian Chang'e, he also fainted. At this moment, the crowd did not retreat. After protecting Jiang Chen and Wakako, their gazes fell on the Changming Passage. Looking around, a battle had already broken out in the Changming Passage. The 9 ancient spirits were like 9 mountains, blocking the Changming Passage and fighting a bloody battle. These 9 ancient spirits have harmed the great thousand world for several generations. Today, they have atoned for their sins. Nian Chang'e sighed. However, just as he finished speaking, the 9 ancient spirits turned into a cloud of smoke and disappeared just like that. F***CK? Clones? Where are their original bodies? The rotten man was stunned for a moment, and then his eyes flashed. He touched his chin and said, Hey, there's a good show to watch. The Yang realm is going to be lively now. Chapter 1398. At this moment, the group of people was dumbfounded. They did not know when the 9 ancient spirits had changed their avatars. Even the experts of the 3 realms of Yang who were fighting with the 9 ancient spirits in the passage were dumbfounded. After fighting for so long, they were only fighting with a few avatars? What shocked them the most was that if the avatars of the 9 ancient spirits were so strong, how terrifying would the real combat power be? Oh no! Quickly return to the 3 realms of Yang. Those 9 bastards. At this moment, the people of the 3 realms of Yang felt the seriousness of the matter. If the 9 ancient spirits were allowed to do whatever they wanted in the 3 realms of Yang, the 3 realms of Yang would be in chaos. After all, the three realms of Yang was not smaller than the Great Thousand Realms. In fact, it was much bigger. The three realms of upper, middle, and lower realms had 1,000 of them in each realm. Hurry up and find them. It's easier said than done. 9 people entering the three realms of Yang is like a stone sinking into the sea. The people of the three realms of Yang were on the verge of exploding. They had agreed to fight in the Great Thousand Realms, but they did not expect the three realms of Yang to be invaded. May I ask who is in charge of the three realms of Yang? At this moment, a large number of people returned to the three realms of Yang, but there was still one person who stayed behind. He walked out of the passage and faced Nian Changa, the Rotten Man, and the others. There was no trace of fear in his eyes. However, when he looked at Nian Changa and the others, there was no hostility. The current leader is in a coma, Nian Changa said softly. When he looked at the man, there was a trace of fear in his eyes. This was because this person was full of immortal qi, and the divine power in his body was almost completed. This was undoubtedly an earth immortal, and he was extremely powerful. Even at his peak, Nian Changa could not reach this level of strength. However, the Rotten Man was very calm. At his peak, he was also an earth immortal. Actually, we have no evil intentions. The reason why we chose to fight in the Great Thousand Realms is to find the thing that suppresses the destiny of the three realms of Yang. The man said, I come from the Yang Upper Realm, Skywheel Sect, Li Wangdao. You are Li Wangdao. At this moment, the Guardians cried out in surprise. Although they had never seen this person before, they had heard of Li Wangdao's name in the previous battle. This person was the sect master of the Yang Upper Realm Skywheel Sect, and he was also a major figure in the Yang Three Realms. He had already lived for several eras, and his divine power had almost transformed into immortal energy. If not for the suppression of the three realms of Yang's opportunity to become an immortal, this person would have ascended long ago. The most frightening thing was that it was said that this person was invincible in the Yang Upper Realm. Being invincible in the Yang Upper Realm, what did that mean? That was equivalent to being invincible in the three realms of Yang. To be honest, if we know where the thing that suppresses the three realms to become an immortal is, we will naturally help you find it and open it. After all, we don't want the people of the upper-class world to be plunged into misery and suffering. The 8-tribe patriarch said in a deep voice, but since ancient times, we have never known what the thing that suppresses the Yang Three Realms opportunity to become an immortal is, much less where it is. You've come to the great wide world several times. Every time, you've shattered the great wide world, but you've never found it. Li Wangdao chuckled bitterly when he heard that. If it were not for the opportunity to become an immortal, the Yang Three Realms would not have bothered to come to the great wide world. After all, every time they came to the great wide world, the Yang Three Realms would suffer heavy losses. Can I stay in the great wide world and look for it myself? Li Wangdao said, Don't worry, I won't touch a single blade of grass or tree in the great wide world. If that's the case, go ahead and look for it. Nian Changa said, but her expression was still very gloomy. She said, If you dare to do anything out of line, even if you're invincible in the three realms, you won't be able to do it. Don't worry, the waters of the great wide world are so deep. I naturally won't do anything out of line, Li Wangdao said. After saying that, he suddenly appeared beside Jiang Chen in a flash. This caused everyone's expressions to change drastically. The Rotten Man and Nian Changa rushed over and stared at Li Wangdao vigilantly. It really is him? This guy is not a good person. Li Wangdao stared at the unconscious Jiang Chen with a strange expression and said, If I'm not wrong, the person who suppressed the opportunity to become an immortal in the three realms was him. As soon as these words were said, Nian Changa and the others trembled all over. They hurriedly protected Jiang Chen in the middle. When they looked at Li Wangdao, their eyes were already filled with hostility. The current him is not the same as before. I clearly distinguish between gratitude and grudges. Li Wangdao said, If he returns one day, then this debt will have to be properly settled. After saying that, Li Wangdao disappeared. He should have gone to find the place where the opportunity to become an immortal in the three realms was suppressed. Then, should we go back first? The 8 patriarchs asked tentatively. Is it really appropriate to just leave him alone? Let him cause trouble. He won't be able to do anything. If he really dares to do something excessive, there's someone in the great wide world who can intimidate him, a guardian said. In the end, everyone returned to the ancestral court, and a group of guardians also came. They had nowhere to go. In any case, as long as they were in the great wide world, it was their home. After returning, Jiang Qun and Wakako were arranged to recuperate at the back of the mountain, while Nian Chang'e took charge of the overall situation. With his identity as the court master of the ancient heavenly court, he was indeed qualified to do so. Now our strength can contend with the three realms of yin and yang. Nian Chang'e did not sit on the throne of the court master of the ancestral court. He knew that this seat could only belong to one person, and that was Jiang Chun. The three realms of yin and yang are not as simple as you think. If they really fight, the great wide world will definitely be destroyed, a guardian said. They had fought with the three realms of yin and yang many times. They had even entered the three realms of yin and yang in a certain era. Therefore, they knew the foundation of the three realms of yin and yang. However, even so, if they really fought in this life, the three realms of yin and yang would also be crippled if the three realms of yin and yang were destroyed. In this life, perhaps there won't be any great war, Rotten said. In the end, no one likes to start a war. It's not good for anyone. Yes, I also don't think there will be a war. Looking at Li Wangdao, he doesn't seem to be willing to start a war, the 8 tribe patriarch said with a nod. Then, there was a problem. Since there was no war, would this matter be over? The answer was obvious. Impossible. Back then, Jiang Chun suppressed the opportunity to become an immortal in the three realms of yin and yang in his first life. Even if there is no war in this life, the three realms of yin and yang won't be peaceful, Rotten said. There won't be a big war, but a small war is probably unavoidable. However, the 9 ancient spirits have gone to the three realms of yang. Those people in the three realms of yang don't have time to care about us now. This is a good thing. When everyone heard this, they could not help but have strange expressions. The 9 ancient spirits had wreaked havoc in the great wide world for several eras. They did not expect that they would play a role in this life. They just did not know if the 9 ancient spirits could become immortals in the three realms of yang. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.